All right. Welcome everybody to this special live episode of Pokey SMP podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. I am Pokey Sun and I will be hosting today's discussion along with my co-host Jesse. And we have some very special guests on with us today. As you can see, we have Mystic Seven, Nashabam, Alex Ketchum, and then Caleb will be joining us a little bit later on. All of these are very reputable and well-established Pokemon content creators and or business owners, entrepreneurs in this space. I will have them do a quick introduction in a little bit, but a quick overview of today's agenda. We will be talking about the latest scams that's been going around in the Pokemon community. Each guest will talk about their experience with recent scams that has collectively accumulated to a whopping $1 million. The objective of tonight's roundtable discussion is to offer valuable insights and advice on what you viewers can do to prevent or avoid these type of scams. So let's first go around and do a quick introduction, and let's have Mystic quickly have a little intro for yourself.
Yeah, sweet. Hi, and thank you guys again for having me on. This is like a really great thing for education in the space because it's so easy to get scammed and it's so hard to understand how to and to not transact in this community because it's not like in a traditional business where it's like invoices and bank wires. It's a lot of PayPal and weird Venmos and stuff. So this is great. But yeah, so I'm Brandon Martin. I own and operate the Mystic Seven and Mystic Rips brands and channels. And then Mystic Rips, we have a e-commerce Pokemon card side of the business where we sell a lot of Pokemon cards and open a lot on stream. So.
All right. All right, I'll go next. My name is Jesse Pang, the co-host of the Poke SMP with PokeSun TCG, and I am a serial entrepreneur, investor in real estate and startups, and also I own and operate a Pokemon shop with my wife. Her name is Van City CJ on Instagram, and we are in Vancouver, Canada. And I'm very honored to have joined by our friends Alex, Brandon, and Shiv, and later on Caleb. And one thing that I realized is I actually invited, obviously, our group of content creators like Shiv, Caleb, and Andy. In my head, I thought I invited everyone, and I was like, Andy just never responded to me. But then I realized that I never pressed send. So I just thought he ignored me, but I just actually accidentally forgot to press send. So that's why he's not here. So I apologize to Andy 100 Charizards, but yeah, it's going to be a great stream. It's going to be very educational. We're going to be calling out people that have been scamming people that are bad apples in the hobby so you don't have to deal with them. And we have to hold each other accountable because there's a lot of money changing hands now in 2024 going into 2025. That's crazy. So yeah, raise awareness, learn from our mistakes and us being scammed, and hopefully it happens less often moving into the new year.
Alex, would you like to do a quick intro?
Alex Ketchum. I ruined the Frankenstein show in 2020, and I've made 1,000 short videos that are very repetitive. Hey guys.
My hero.
Legend.
Shiv.
I'm Shiv. I go by not Shiv on my notes. It's kind of confusing, but I'm just a content creator and collector, and that's really it.
Awesome.
So humble.
Thank you all so much for being here. And let's just dive right into Mystic's scam story. Can you give us a little idea of what's been happening? I know it's been very stressful for you, so we would like to hear all about it.
Yeah, it's funny. I totally thought we were live before this, so I told the entire story. So chat, know that this is sort of rehearsed, but it's not because it's fake. So basically, a couple months ago, I met this kid, and I call him a kid. He's like, early 20s, late teens, which is kind of a big part of this community, which is the cool thing is it's a lot of like younger people doing business. I think cards is fantastic for that. It gives like, yeah, I mean, you see kids wheeling dealing at card shows. Like these kids are going to be Fortune 500 company owners when they're older. This is like a great community for that. The problem though is I think you have a lot of bad apples, and I think that it's I don't know. So basically, I was doing business with this kid. I met him at a card convention. Like, was a cool dude. He was from Alaska. I was like, all right, dope. This guy's cool. He's got access apparently to X and Y era and vintage stuff, which is things that like I'm definitely looking for, and we have sold a lot of at our company. So we had done some sort of smaller deal. and which was fine. And then later on, he hit me up and texted me. Well, first he visited Los Angeles. He visited my office. Like I gave him some merch. Like I met him through like a dude who I was doing business with. So he was like kind of vouched for. And then he came to LA and like pulled up and we hung out and like we met. Like cool dude, right? Totally cool dude. And I was in with it. So he sent me a text message. He was like, hey man, like I just got in this huge lot of X and Y stuff, plus like some base set and Team Rocket booster boxes. And I was like, dope. All right, the prices that we're getting on this is insane. This guy apparently has crazy sources, which is totally believable in the space because people do have crazy sources and there's some really good deals that fly around if you know the right people, right? So I kind of just like assumed like, oh, all right, this must be the guy, So I sent him money, right? Something along the lines of like $14,000 over the span of like a day or two. And then he was like, yo, I've got another lot coming in this weekend. Would you mind like waiting so that I can just ship it all out like, this weekend once I get this lot in? So I was like, oh, for sure. So then over the next couple of days, he sends me pictures and things of stuff that he is slowly getting in apparently. And I'm sending more and more money because I was like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, I mean, you're at like Walmart, right? Like I'll take this box and this box and that box. So just kind of sent throughout the week more and more money. And then the week after that, he's like, hey, like I just got another lot in. I'm getting it on Wednesday. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of getting annoying. Like, we're getting to like 30 grand here. Like I kind of need to sell this sort of soon, but like, I'll wait. Right. So over the next week, I send another like 20,000, 25,000 until it gets to about $55,000 for a total balance. I was buying things like booster boxes and vintage boxes and big XY collections and cases of things, like all this stuff. And then so 2 weeks had gone by. I'd sent the $55,000. And then I was like, okay, cool, dude, it's time to ship. The weekend went by. He's like, hey, sorry, I had a busy weekend. I was like doing things like I'll ship it out this week. I'm like, all right, man, like kind of stop messing around here because like this is a lot of working capital for us. We can't have this tied up. This is affecting my business. He's like, oh, dude, totally sorry. I got you. I'll ship it out. A couple of days went by, nothing. I sent him another message. I was like, man, like what's going on? I'm getting a little suspicious here. And he was like, oh, I'll ship it out like today. So he prints a label. He drops it off at USPS and he texts me the tracking. I checked back in 2 days and it said it had never been dropped off. The label was just printed. I'm like, bro, what's going on? So I hit him again. I was like, hey man, like, it said it was never shipped. Like this is becoming a problem. Like I might have to take action against you if like this goes on for like another couple of days. This is hurting my business. He was like, okay. Like, don't worry. Like I'll send it out. It's going to be fine. Another couple of days go by. And in the meantime, all of us here, we're all very busy business owners, right? So this situation wasn't the only thing that was on my mind. It was in the back burner. Like it was annoying, but I was dealing with other things, which is why I wasn't taking this as seriously as I probably should have been. So after another week went by, we're talking like 3, almost 4 weeks now of just like getting installed on 55,000. Eventually, I was just like, man, like sorry, bro, but like my attorneys are going to write up something, and they'll be in contact with you. I'm going to go to my bank. I'm going to file a police report. Like, this is like, you're scamming me, bro. Like, this isn't real anymore. And then I just get all these walls of excuses. And, there was moments where he like text message wouldn't go through. He's like, sorry, like, I had to leave the company and go to a doctor because I'm really sick. It's like, dude, you took my money and left the company, bro. There's plenty of people who are sick in the world who don't scam other people and leave the company. Like what? Like this is a weird excuse that you're pulling out at a very convenient time, And then more time goes by, and we're constantly going back and forth trying to figure this out. He's keeping in contact with me, which is interesting. And I don't know. I had dealt with something like this before, so I think I went about it the wrong way. And this is more personal side of things, but this was all happening at the same time that like probably one of the most stressful personal life and business life situations was going down that had my full focus. Like, my company was at risk due to that. Not even due to the scam. So like the scam was just like this annoying thing happening on the back burner that I was kind of dealing with. But the money getting scammed and stolen at this time was like the worst time this possibly could happen. So like there was so much going on. I was trying to deal with all the things at once. I wish I had more time to just sit down and like go to the police or go to the bank and like, take a couple hours out of my day and figure this out. Cause it was for $55K, right? But I don't know, that's life. So that all was going down. And then he and I worked something out. He's like, hey man, like he sent me a big long text apology of like, I'm so sorry and I respect you and blah, 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 kiss ass. And then he's like, all right, we'll go on a payment plan and I'll pay you back everything that I owe you with interest. And I'm just like, man, like you send me pictures of product, bro. Like you shouldn't be paying me back anything. You should have just sent me the product that you had pictures of, which obviously the pictures were fake. So 2 weeks have gone by, so this is a couple weeks ago. He sent payment on 1 week. We went on a weekly payment plan. He sent the payment on the first week. He sent the payment on the second week. The third week, he didn't send any payment. This week, this Friday, didn't send any payment, and he had excuses. I'm sick. I went to the doctors. Like, I'm working really hard to get your money back. Like, all this stuff, and it's just like, I'm done with this, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I was keeping this low key, and I wasn't mentioning his name, but I'll call him out now because now it's over, bro. It's like, we had a payment plan. You broke schedule 2 weeks in a row. Like, you're a piece of ass. So like, you're a scammer. Like, you're not a good person. Like you might be sick, but that doesn't like dissolve you from the moral responsibility you have of treating people with respect and not stealing from other people and scamming. Like, that's not an excuse, you know? So his name is Cole Shepard. He goes by Cole_freestyle on Instagram. Please stay away from this guy. I met him at a convention through other vendors and people. They're probably got a bunch of people who like are scammers, but it checked out at the time, and I was moving too quickly. And also too, seller edge or buyer education. If you're a buyer and you're looking to get product, man, the best way to do it is like, and this group here I'll have to leave, but this group here is going to talk about it. But like, the way that my company buys product from the public is that we get the product shipped to us. We examine the product first and make sure it's legit. Then we send the money. That's the best way to do it, especially if you're like a verified buyer and seller. Like, people know I'm not going to scam because I have a reputation and a social media presence. So like, I can take product in first and send payment after. I can afford that luxury. So like, I didn't do that. And yes, Gonzo, like, there should have been a contract written up. Like, there should have been a middleman. A lot of the responsibility here is on me, right? Like, there's so many things that I could have and should have done to prevent this from happening, but I didn't do it because it was little payments. You know, it was like $5,000 here, $10,000 here, $3,000 there, $2,000 there. It wasn't just 55 all in once. You know, it was these little payments over 2 weeks. You know, and we send, and all of us here, like, you know, you send $5,000-$10,000 payments all day, every day for product in the Pokemon card space. If you're in a business, it's not a big transaction, right? 55 is a big transaction. It added up to that. So that was the whole situation. So Cole_freestyle on Instagram. Look out for the guy. Report the guy. Like, he is a scammer. He's not a good dude. And, you know, we had the payment plan. It's been broken for 2 weeks. So like, you know, I got to call the dude out. I'm going to make some Instagram posts from my personal Instagram and stuff next week. And like, put more like social media fire behind this. And then I'm going to have to go to my attorneys and possibly sue him for damages to my company, because $50,000 in a company that does rotating inventory, that's more than $50,000 in damage. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage, because that's money that we didn't have to generate revenue that we usually generate with that money. So that's the whole situation. Super frustrating. And again, it's totally like, there's totally responsibility on me, but you know, you got to be smart in this space. There are scammers out there, and do not buy from that guy is the takeaways there. And listen to what everyone else here is about to say today, because there'll be some great information.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mystic. I know you have to leave, and we will continue on with the conversation, but that's a very stressful situation and could even end a smaller business. But hopefully you get to resolve that situation with your attorney. And does anyone else have any input? But thank you, Brandon. You can go ahead and leave if you have to go.
Yeah,
Just to
thank you
say,
guys again.
sorry, Brandon.
Oh.
That was awful. But it's just, it sucks so bad that happened. And your story is pretty similar to mine. So yeah.
Man, hey, dude, we're all right though. You know, we're just minding our own business, trying to make a living out here, right?
Minding our own business.
God damn it. I walked into it.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Have a good night, man.
All right. So I would have to say the first thing to take away from Brandon's story is, no matter how reputable the person is, and this person obviously is a mutual friend of a mutual friend. And if you were to to send payment before getting the product, I think a contract in place is an absolute must. And a middleman is I think you have to use middleman as well. If you were to send money to an relatively unknown source, even though there is one or two vouchers, I think we talked about this off stream. There's a lot of reputable people that have done business with a lot of people in the last 3-4 years that pull exit scams when they really need the money and when they're thinking about exiting a hobby. Because at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, the Pokemon community is a very niche space. We are a very small community. So there's a lot of people that think if I don't have a good reputation in the Pokemon community, this is not the real world. I go back to my finance job or real estate or manufacturing, something else. Like nobody would know the things that I did in the Pokemon space. So
Sounds like a certain NFL player.
Yeah, well, he has
I
a
wanted to
name.
bring that up.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say, Mystic's mistake in this whole process is not signing a contract using a middleman. And obviously, this guy's a scammer. So we never want to blame, we never want to blame the person that got scammed. But there are measures that he could have taken. That I mean, I've made that mistake countless times myself. Not for $55,000, but absolutely do sign a contract, use a middleman. If you were to pay first. Unless this is someone that you've dealt with countless times, is a really good friend or a family member. But yeah, I'm going to start doing that from now on. And the other thing is, no matter how many followers this guy has on social media, that's just a vanity metric. Like, don't be like, this guy has 5-figure followers on Instagram, I'm going to send him money, because a lot of the followers are bought nowadays. You can look at his engagement.
That's the first thing I looked at too.
Yeah. I look at their views first.
One of the honeypots of a situation like Mystics, and it's something where I've stumbled in the past before, is as collectors, we understand what market values are and we understand how fast things sell when they're priced well. So there's this urgency, right? If Mystic was being offered a case of, let's say, some hot set from XY era, for 20% under market, like this perfect kind of under market rate where he goes, oh, this guy's in Alaska. He doesn't understand like whatever, or he doesn't really care. His margin is great on this because he's had it since, whatever year, I got to pick this up. Otherwise the competitor is going to pick this up. Somebody else is going to buy this before I do. And that is part of like the mentality that you kind of, that cautious mentality you kind of always have to carry with you, because sometimes you seize on an opportunity when something's priced well and it pays off huge. But there's other times where you take that risk and what happens to Mystic happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, like, this guy, I've had an experience talking with a lot of scammers, and they love telling you their life story. Like, my uncle's in the hospital, right? I had a bad week. I got fired from my job. My mother is sick. And unfortunately, I'm a very empathetic person. So when people tell me those things, it's hard for me to be like, give me my money, right? Like, it's really hard to do that. But I find that it's a pattern that if someone keeps telling you about their personal troubles and things that's happened in their lives, and this is actually a funny thing. Something similar happened to me with a previous $7,000 deal a few months ago, if you guys remember following my story. But I don't believe this guy's a scammer, but he refused to ship my cards in 12 or 13, 14 days since I paid him. And his whole story was, I just got a new job. You don't understand. I'm so busy and I can't ship it this week because my job ends at 3:30. I have to go to the gym and I have to work out until 5. And when I come out of the gym, all the post offices are closed. So I'm going to have to ship it to next week when I don't have to go to the gym every day. And that is just absolutely ridiculous, right? And then I ended up calling him out on Instagram and he shipped right away. So sometimes you just have to take those measures, even though you don't want the drama or you don't want to call somebody out. But honestly, I find that if somebody starts talking to you about their personal troubles and the reasons why they didn't complete their end of the deal, at the end of the day, if I fulfilled my end of the deal as a buyer and sent you the money, I don't care what happens to you, as long as you're not like in the hospital, like you got hit by a car. You have to ship me my product. That's a commitment from both sides, right? So anytime people start telling you about their life stories, you should just cut them off and say, hey, that sucks, but with all due respect, it is not relevant to this conversation or to this deal. So yeah, that's one of the things I found. What about you guys?
Shiv, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I mean, I'm one of the I would say I'm the outlier in this conversation in the sense that I've never gotten scammed in this entire community out of the 5.5 years that I've been here. Now I will say, and I mean this is a conversation for later, that like I've had 2 of the biggest scammers on my podcast, the Pokemon hobby, but that's a conversation for later on. Other than that, like no, I think it's important to take the right kind of measures, and I'm sure a lot of these got like I'm sure the panel here will discuss things to avoid and how to go about, you know, like not getting scammed. I think that's the important thing. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people, especially scammers do get smart, and they do find different ways to scam others. Sorry, I'm looking at Gonzo's message.
Why do you look
yeah,
like you're looking up the
You
security camera?
gotta join the party, man. I can't
Bro, they
believe you're
caught
in
me,
this
dude.
hobby for 5.5 years and never gotten scammed. What
No,
is going on? You're not doing something right.
No, I'm very like you had mentioned it before that you're a very empathetic person and very sympathetic person. I'm not that. Like it, even with people that I'm dealing with like vintage boxes with, I'm still very, very precautionary when it comes to the boxes that they send to me. Because like I also do high-end consignment. So like often at times whenever I receive boxes and it's from a trustworthy person, who knows, they could have got scammed too. And so like oftentimes I'll have many other people that are well respected in the community look at the exact same box that I'm looking at. Because again, I'm an expert, but in this case, I'm taking the back seat and letting actual experts look at it and verify what I'm looking at as well, just to make sure that the person who's buying this item is getting what they intended to buy. But there's so many different ways that I've prevented myself from getting scammed. There's been one time where someone tried to scam me on eBay, but they failed at it. They were just too dumb. But that's really it.
Yeah, just to kind of like
Actually-
wrap up Brandon's situation.
Yeah.
The reason that this guy kept buying time is because he's actively scamming multiple people. And he's basically, most scammers, from what I've figured out from moderating in different collecting groups over the years, are scamming multiple people simultaneously all the time, like a pyramid scheme. And at those points where the heat rises and you feel like I'm going to get called out publicly, or this person is actually going to file legal, they will refund those people that make the most noise before they gypsy fade out of the hobby. That's typically what I see. And I've seen this so many times in the hobby at this point, where you'll pay out the people that are making the most noise. And then the people that are just kind of like, hey, where's my stuff? They never get reimbursed. And then the person disappears.
No, I agree, and that's actually that's like a good segue into what I want to talk about. What my guy's doing, because I believe he's probably doing the same thing. Let's just go to that story first, because we have Poke Casino Pete down here as like one of the other victims or one of the other people that's had experience with this seller. That I would 100% say he scammed me, but I did get the money back in this week. But I'm gonna go into the details and talk about that, so we can all share our thoughts about how to avoid that from happening and why he's doing what he's doing. Because I do believe this happens a lot in the car industry, actually, or in the real estate industry, this Ponzi scheme idea where like a dealership, because they need, it's like a very heavy capital industry, you have to buy a lot of inventory, and when the inventory sits and there's depreciation, there's interest, when a dealership needs money, they oftentimes sell the same car 3 times to 3 different people, right? And then eventually, once they actually sell enough cars, they'll, in 1 or 2 months, like, oh, your car is broken down, it's being shipped over there, it's on its way, your car like got stolen in transit, and eventually refund the people before they file a lawsuit or legal action, right? So something like that happens every single day at almost every city with car dealerships. So I believe this guy's doing the same thing, selling the car to multiple people. And I actually have proof of that today. And I'm going to call him out because this is someone that's very well known in the high-end collecting community, with just trophy cards after trophy cards. I believe he's got like 3 illustrators, has multiple sets of Pika trophies, and someone that from the outside, a very trustworthy person if you have a multi-million dollar collection, right? So can we pull up? So and this is Peter, Poke Casino, a good friend of mine.
Yes.
What's up?
And
Hey, Peter.
I'm just going to tell my story first, and then Pete's going to tell his side of the story. So we
Welcome
can
to
have
the
the
panel.
whole picture of who this person is.
Yes.
All right. Can we pull up the slides and the screenshot?
Yes. Coming right up.
All right. So this is on a PSA 10 Gold Star Rayquaza English, and this is probably the 6th PSA 10 that I've purchased and owned in the past like few years. So I'm very familiar with that card. Anytime one of these cards comes up for sale, I usually try and buy it unless they're asking something crazy. So this guy sent me a message and saying, hey, I heard you like Gold Star Rayquaza. Do you want to buy it? So we came to a deal at 39K plus like some other fees, and he's paying the middleman, which I'm going to leave out of this conversation because as we talk about it, you guys will understand that the middleman does have responsibility of what's happening. But after speaking to him and after he told me his side of the story, I do believe it is an honest mistake. So I don't want to put his career and his name in jeopardy because he's had a good reputation for a long time, but he has definitely made a mistake in this particular incident. So I'm going to talk about it, but I'm going to leave the middleman's name out of it. And I'm going to refer to him as the middleman. So as you can see, this guy's name is Flowers and Turds on Instagram. Before this interaction with him, I did hear that he's a terrible person to deal with. He's very tough. He's very flaky, and he's a huge time waster. But I didn't know if he was a scammer of some sort. So when he reached out to me, basically telling me that, hey, like I really I heard it, you want Gold Star Rayquazas. Here it is. I was like, PSA 10. I'm in, right? So we came to a deal of 39,000. As you can see, we have the invoice here and have his email, and he agreed to drop it off at this middleman in Singapore. And this middleman is a very well-known shop in Singapore and someone who's very reputable. So for him and me, we're both protected because this guy is not going to risk his reputation and his business by working with either of us, right? So that is the first thing that I do when it comes to international deals, is to find a middleman that we can work with. Unfortunately, this guy doesn't want me to pay the middleman because usually the best way to do it is for the middleman to take payment as well. But it was kind of tough to do that internationally, and this guy didn't trust this person enough to take the money. So the second best option is him dropping off the card in Singapore at this middleman's shop, and for me to send him money after the middleman confirms receipt of the card. And after he receives it, the middleman will send me the card or arrange like delivery or pickup. So that was all agreed upon, as you can see in the screenshots here. The third one, you can see the payment will be made before delivering while I'm at Oxley. And got his name here. I apologize for that. I'll probably initiate the transfer before then because it might take a few days. So I'm timing it. Usually going to take a few days and most likely get it on Friday. So then I talked to him about full payment. And then he changed the contract. We did sign a contract, and he basically made it so full payment taken before handing over the card. That defeats the purpose of the middleman. So he agreed. He's like, yeah, that's right. Just change it. I'll confirm. And you can see in the next page, just to confirm, I'll pass the card to this person. They confirm, then you can initiate payment. So the terms were all agreed upon. And he even said, I've got no issues about the legitimacy of either you or the middleman or the store, right? So I was talking to him, like I've done multiple 6-figure deals with sellers where they send me the product of the card first before I paid because of our reputation in the community, similar to what Mystic was talking about. So he's like, yeah, don't worry. I'm not worried about you. I trust you. I trust the middleman. Let's go ahead and do it. And this was on, I believe, Christmas Eve or the 23rd, this conversation that we had. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to the bank. And then I sent him the 39,000 on Christmas Eve, December 24th. So we have the screenshot to prove that it came out of my account. And then do we have the screenshots of him telling me that, let's see. But basically, long story short, I told him that the money might arrive on Monday or Tuesday because on Christmas Eve, it was a Tuesday. And Wednesday and Thursday, 25th and 26th is Christmas and Boxing Day in Canada. The banks are not open. So on Friday, when they do transfer it, it might take one more business day because it'll be midnight in Asia. So he'll receive it on Monday and Tuesday. And I don't think we put the screenshot in here, but he confirms that is okay. Did we put it in here? Yeah, I guess not. But he does confirm that I understand. I will receive it next week. Don't worry about it. And then middle of the night on Friday, this was like 4 a.m. No, Saturday morning, my time, 4 a.m. The middleman sent me a message and said, hey, he came and picked the card up. He threatened me or something. I had to give the card back because he said he's going on a flight and he's going away. So I sent him the screenshot. I was like, I'm very confused. Why would you go ask for the card back from the middleman when you know that I've already paid for the card and we have an agreement that you'll receive in the next week? And like we had this whole deal. And how come you didn't come to me? And then he just sent me a screenshot of, he's like, I never got your money. So I was like, hey, if you're going back on this part, I already knew this guy went back on our deal, most likely because he sold it to somebody else for a higher price, right? And that happens all the time. That's why he needed the car right then. And the fact that he pretty much timed himself where right before I slept, he's like, yeah, I'm so excited about this whole deal. It's fine. It's going to arrive next week. And then when it's 3:30 or 4 a.m. my time, he went to the middleman to get the card because he knows that I would be asleep then. So this is like a well thought after scam that he pulled. He got the card back and then he was basically like, yeah, I just need the card back. I'm sorry. So I was like, that's okay. You went back on your deal. I'm okay with it as long as you keep the card at the middleman service until you send me the card back. I mean, you send me my money back. And that's when you take the card because that's the least he can do, right? Because when he has the card and the money in a transaction like this, nobody should ever have both the card and the money at any point in the transaction.
Right.
So he's like, yeah, sorry, can't do it. And then I was like, I'll give you my ID. I'll give you my address. I'll send you like the bank statement with their stamp on it to show that like the money already left my account 4 days ago. And then he literally just said, I'm not in the mood to discuss this any further. I broke a bond and lost 6 figures. So I was like, how do I trust that you'll send me back my money if you're not even giving me the card? Like, put yourself in my shoes. And look at what he said. He said, you have no choice. That is all. I can't think of a more barbaric way to respond to somebody that you owe $39,000 to. You have no choice. That is all.
Some villain era shit right there.
That's some crazy ass shit, right? And at that point,
The nerve.
the nerve to say that. I realized like what was happening because also, did you include the screenshot with Tim? Yeah, but here is the proof that the contract that we signed, the invoice, the money left my account on December 24th. And yeah, we have this I even sent him this from the bank, right? You got the bank stamp on there. I can't fake the money being sent. He knows the money was sent. So there was no way for him to justify his action of going to the middleman behind my back and pretty much threaten them to give him the card back. No matter what happens after that point, that is a scam. And that is not to be accepted. And nobody should do business with this person ever again. And here is proof that this guy is trying to sell this card multiple times. So I actually posted about this right when we signed the contract. I'm about to wire the money. And I do that on purpose because similar things have happened to me in the past. So when I buy a big card after I sign the contract, before I pay, a lot of the times I would post, I bought this card because specifically for this reason. Some people would reach out to me and be like, hey, that card was actually sold to somebody else. That's when I know there's something wrong, right? So this happened right before I wired him the money. Pallettown Marketplace reached out to me after I posted I bought this card. He's already sold this card last week for belongs to a client of mine. So I asked him this person, and then you guys can read the conversation. But basically, he sold the card last week, and they signed a contract. Everything was agreed upon. So Pallettown was about to wire this guy the money. That's when he found out that I bought the card as well, and I signed a contract, and I was about to wire the money. So I told Pallettown, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go ahead with this deal. If you already bought the card is yours because you definitely did it before me. So let's wait until this guy to respond to us before we do anything. Somehow, some way, this guy managed to convince both of us that there was a miscommunication, because he told Palatown that, oh, I never agreed to your shipping terms. Jesse gave me better terms. I don't want to ship to the US. So Jesse said I could drop it off at a middleman service. So I liked his term more. And that's not even the thing. Like, you could like my term better, but Palatown's under the impression that he's supposed to be wiring this guy the money. So there's no way for him to explain that in hindsight, because if he liked my terms more and we signed a contract and I'm about to wire him, he should have told Palatown that the deal was off, but he never did. So it is my opinion that he intentionally did this so he can get the money from both Palatown's client and me, and maybe potentially other people, to pay back some of his debts, which we'll talk about after. So yeah, he got back to Palatown and said, hey, well, it's because of the shipping terms and services. And he told me that, hey, like, I never agreed to shipping terms, so the card is yours. So I believed him, because in my head, I thought using a middleman is going to protect me, right? So he wasn't going to get the money before the middleman got the card anyway. So I thought I was protected, which is why I wanted to come on live stream and talk about this scenario, because I didn't even know this was a remote possibility that you can use a middleman to sell a card and get the card back from the middleman after the buyer sends you the money. Like, I've never heard of such a thing before. So it's a very sophisticated or complicated scam if he's doing this on purpose. And frankly, I don't even care if this is on purpose or by accident or a mixture of both, because this should not be accepted by the community ever, right? And as you can see, this is Pokemon TNFT, another friend of mine who actually got offered the card as well. This is on the night that he took the card back. So you see, he sent me a picture. Like, he's supposed to buy all 3 of these cards. And this was on the night that this person went to the middleman to get the cards back. So he clearly tried to sell it to at least 3 people at the same time and had agreed upon deals.
Wow.
And this is the conversation between me and the middleman. And he's saying, oh, he tells him it's for tax. He apparently owes a lot of money for tax. And also he was saying that he needed the money on Tuesday, and then he sold his bonds at $100,000 loss. So he doesn't need the money anymore on Friday. So he doesn't want to sell the cards anymore. And then he tells me he doesn't want to talk about the card and the purchase because he lost 6 figures in his bonds. Makes no sense to me. Again, this is another indication of a scammer when they tell you about their personal situation when it's got nothing to do with the deal or with the buyer, right? So again, that's pretty much the whole story about this person. The good thing is I did go to the bank on the 27th Saturday. The bank told me most likely he already has the funds, but it might be with the intermediary bank due to the holidays. So we filed a recall request, and thankfully this week they actually froze the money at the intermediary account in the US, I believe. I think it's Bank of America. And I got the money back. But that doesn't change the fact that this guy tried to pull the scam with multiple buyers and got the card back to sell it to somebody else in Singapore and refused to keep the card at the middleman service before he sends me back my funds. So again, flowers and turds, he might have one of the craziest collections in the world. And he might have cards that are, he's willing to sell it to you for well under market price. That's also red flag, because I almost made a deal for both the Gold Star Rayquaza PSA 10 and his PSA 9 98 Pika trophy, number 3 trainer, right? For $160,000. So he's willing to let that go for $160,000. So we almost made a deal for $200K worth of cards. Both of those cards were priced well under market. Again, that might be another red flag, because the Gold Star Rayquaza has been going for around like 42 to 46,000 in private sales. He's willing to let it go for 39. And the number 3 trainer, that might be a $200,000 card. Obviously, my friend Pete here, he has one too. He thinks it's worth a lot more. But this guy actually said 160K without even like any discussion. He's like, yeah, you can have it for 160. So again, he might have amazing cards to sell you, and he might have really good prices, really competitive prices, but he's doing that for a reason. And nobody in the high-end collecting community should ever deal with this person ever again.
Wow.
I know that's
to
a long
scam
story.
3 different people who are actually reputable people of the community. That's pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
Pallet Town, TMFT, and just curious, does Poke Casino P, do you have anything to add to that as well?
So my story was kind of different. He didn't really scam me, but he was just like a humongous time waster on the sense of, saw his name, saw what he's posting. Obviously, collectors like that usually aren't time wasters and like to make deals if they're going to sell anything. And I was in Japan for a couple months and I was messaging him about trying to buy 2 of his Snap cards. So I was going after his Squirtle and his Charmander. And I said, hey, I'm really interested. I hear you're in Singapore. Like, I'm coming there after I go to the Malaysia show. I'd like to buy them from you. Can we try to work out a deal? And, he just kind of said, who are you? What do you want exactly? The price is the price. And I was like, okay, well, is it negotiable if I take both? And we started kind of getting into it. And I just started kind of seeing red flags kind of like right away, in the sense of like, the Squirtle's graded, but the Charmander's raw. And, with a trophy card, you want to know the condition. You want to see it if you're going to spend over 60, 70 grand on a card. Mm-hmm. And I told him like, hey, can you take it out of the sleeve and the shield that it's in? Because he had it in like a screwed shield. And he was like, you can see it by the picture itself. And I'm like, well, I can't tell if there's dents, there's scratches. Can you take it out? And so that way I can see it. So he just sends me a video of the card inside everything, and just kind of like, which we all know you can hide so many flaws through a glass case and a sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, bro, I'm not going to even make you an offer until I see the card outside. So then he takes it out of the shield, but he leaves it in the sleeve, and he just kept refusing to show me the card raw, which I thought was just like so weird. Like, bro, I'm not going to pay you that kind of money if I don't see the card. So we kept going back and forth. And then the Squirtle, he was like, you can look at the scans. I'm like, cool, but can you send me a video? I know it's slabbed. I just want to have a general idea. So I said, all right, well, at this point, it was just so much back and forth. I started messaging a lot of my like trophy friends that are like in China and Singapore. And I was like, hey, do you guys know this dude? And they all said the same thing. They said, yeah, he's reputable, but he is the most difficult human being to do any sort of deal with. And they just pretty much said, good luck. We've never done a deal with him. So I immediately was like, all right, trying to like cater this guy. I'm like, hey, do I need to come to Singapore and pull out cash for this deal? What can I do to make this so easy for you? Because I could tell that he's just one of those very paranoid people. And he was like, well, I'm also in Malaysia right now for work. So if we did the deal, it'd have to be in Malaysia. And I said, great, I'm going to the Arita signing. Like, let's just meet there and do the deal. And then immediately just comes excuse after excuse. Oh, I don't want everyone watching us do a deal. And I'm like, my man, it's a convention center connected to a hotel. Like, we can rent out a room. We can go to my room. It can be private as possible. I'm not trying to do a big 6-figure deal with like 20 people watching anyway. And he was like, yeah, I'm just really private. I don't want anyone knowing my name. I don't want anyone knowing my face. And I was like, yeah, we're not going to do a deal then if this doesn't happen. So after like a month of back and forth, he was like, okay, fine. I agree to show you the cards at the show. And he was like, please don't waste my time. And I was like, dude, I have hundreds of referrals. You can see my collection. I'm not full of it. I'm trying to make this. I need these Snap cards. I got a goal I'm trying to do. So finally we had that agreement. And this is also after messaging about him forgetting our deal too. He'll be like, yeah, what did you want again? And I'm like, bro, we've been talking about the Snaps for weeks now. We don't message for a couple of days, and you already forgot what I want to buy from you. So that was also another like huge red flag. But in my head, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to see him in person. You can't really scam someone if it's face-to-face. And I'm like, all right, so is this a done deal? Am I going to see these cards, or are you going to still try to sell this in the next couple of weeks before I meet you? He's like, if you're really serious about it, then it's fine. I said, okay, cool. So I started selling some stuff out of my PC. 6 figures, I got to get liquid fast. So I started selling all this stuff, and then I get to Malaysia, and the night before our deal, he sends me a message going, yeah, I changed my mind, man. I don't want to show you these cards in person.
Yo,
and
what?
Like, my guy, what do you want to sell these cards or not? Like, if you want to keep them, just say it. But like, you now wasted months of my time, months of messaging. And the night before, when I come to Malaysia, mainly for that deal, he just pulls that under the rug. Is like, yeah, I'm just not comfortable doing it in front of people. And I said, yes, we've already agreed to do this privately. And he's like, no, if you want to pay me a deposit to see the cards, then we can do it. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, you want me to pay you money before I even see you to just being able to chance to see the card outside of the sleeve? So that's when I kind of went off on the guy and I said, bro, you're done. I don't want to deal with you ever again. You're such a time waster. And like, for me, everyone knows, like, I've dealt with so many people like this and I never really post about it. I just kind of like keep to myself with this kind of stuff. But once Jesse told me that what happened, I was like, nah, man, this guy is a joke. Absolute clown, just wasting people's time. Clearly a scammer, which is so weird when he's sitting on like millions of dollars of trophies just around, but he can't do a deal with anyone because he's what I think is a psychopath.
Yeah. It could be a
gotta
combination.
Contextualize it for chat, because a lot of people won't know who Flowers and Turds is. Among the high-end collectors, like there's a few dozen in the space that are just truly high-end creme de la creme collectors in the Pokemon space. This man has become somewhat of a go-to for the trophy market. And he doesn't have, 100,000 followers, but he does have 1,300 followers. And those 1,300 followers are very kind of keyed into like what moves, what shakes in the highest end part of the Pokemon market. PSA 10, Gold Star Rays, the Snap cards. So I just want to applaud Casino and Jesse for doing this, because the number of people that could potentially be saved tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars is real right now. Like, this is a big kind of breaking thing for high-end collectors. Anyway.
Yeah. And just the fact that this guy is like, he's a pathological liar. He tells everyone a different story. And what really is the huge red flag is him telling me, I actually had the screenshot, but I do think I sent like 50 screenshots. She had to pick a few. So it's not here, but I can post it on my story later. But he told me there was like 4 hours before he went to pick up the cards. He's like, if you don't send me, or if I don't receive the money by next Friday, so this was like the Friday before, if I don't receive the money by next Friday, I will go and pick up the card from the middleman. And I was like, that's fine, because from my understanding, and what the bank told me is the money should arrive on Monday or Tuesday. So I was like, that's fine. And then 3-4 hours later, he went and got the card back, and he told the middleman that no matter what, he will have to have the card back. And okay, so somebody actually in the chat asked, hey, how come the middleman released the card to him without the confirmation from me? Well, the reason why is he made a mistake. He absolutely should not have done that. The reasoning that he gave me was it's Singapore, and before he receives payments, he is like the legal owner of the card. And if the middleman refuses to give the card back to the seller, then the police can come or something like that. But so I was asking him, I was like, okay, so if that's the case, then why would anyone use you as a middleman or anyone as a middleman in Singapore ever again? If you're telling me that if the seller can take the card back from the middleman whenever he pleases, then how would the middleman be able to protect the buyer side at all? So my advice, if that is the case, well, I told him, I was like, hey, I've middleman many deals for my friends for free, for like no cost. But if the seller comes to me and asks for the card back, I don't know if I have to go to jail for a couple nights. I will not hand over the possession of the buyer to protect the buyer, because that is just not okay. Like, I can hire a lawyer. I can talk to the police, explain the situation. I would not hand over a $40,000 card back to the seller without confirmation from the buyer. So he did make a mistake, but he did apologize, and he is a lawyer apparently in Singapore. So he was actually committed to file a lawsuit and pay for the legal fees on my behalf. That's his commitment. So again, I don't think this guy did it on purpose, but he did make a mistake.
Yeah, I know a middleman as well, and he is actually a really good guy. I think it's just a really sticky situation where we didn't really know anything about Singaporean laws. So it's definitely something to think about in the future for sure. Middling high-end product.
So I have to ask, just because a good majority of the people that are in the hobby, they're not going to be, dealing with, 6-figure cards. I mean, like when we're talking about trophy cards, that's the top 1%, right? So like for a good majority of the people that are in the chat, I have to ask, you Peter and Jesse, what are some things that like a person could do to avoid all this mess together? Just because we are talking about stories here, we're talking about things and situations that you're currently going through. Um, what kind of advice would you give to the average person that's dealing with just buying cards from a private from in a private sort of situation in that sort of regard? Like you're buying a card from someone else. What are some things that people can do to make sure that they're not going to get scammed? I mean, like often at times,
Yeah, that's fair.
people aren't dealing with a middleman, right? It's just it's A to B and there's no C, right? So what can someone do to make sure that they're not going to get scammed?
I think in-person deal is really important. If it's a smaller amount, do an in-person deal at a police station, outside of a police station. I've done that a few times, and again, I feel like it's like you can always get scammed, but doing an in-person deal is a lot safer than doing a wire transfer or crypto or any of these transfers. So that is preferred. And for a card like this, and I even told Flowers, I was like, if I were to do, because we're not just talking about the $160,000 number 3 trainer, but he was trying to sell me his 97 Pika trophy set for about 1.2 million as well. Obviously, that's way too high. We're going to negotiate on the deal. But I was like, after we do the Rayquaza deal, I'm comfortable with you. We will do some kind of a meetup in person to complete this deal. And I think if you have a deal with a person and they refuse to do a meetup deal with you, that's a red flag, and you should just cancel the deal right away, right? If the guy's like, yeah, I don't know, I don't want to meet up with you, and I don't want my face to be seen, kind of the similar things that Flowers told Poke Casino, I feel like I would just call the deal off, because like I'm comfortable with showing my face. I'm a pretty public person. You can find me where I am because I know, I'm a good person. I have a good reputation. I'm not scared for you to find me or call me out because I've never scammed anybody, right? Why would this guy be scared to do an in-person deal, right? So, yeah, that's my advice. Try and do in-person deals as much as possible. If not, absolutely do use the middleman, but don't do what I did and send the seller the money, but you should send the middleman the money, and the middleman should be the person that's dealing with the funds as well. That way he knows exactly which part of the process you're at. So
something that I used to do before I even dealt with middlemen to begin with was that when I dealt with another person, I was buying like $500 to a couple $1,000 cards, items that I want, even stuff off of eBay. What I would do is one, I would keep record of the entire conversation, just like screenshots, and then whenever I received an item, I would record myself. I think recording yourself is probably the most important thing you possibly should do when buying things from other people. So that way you have a record of anything that's going on. If anything crazy happens, you have a video of it. And then doing the same thing when it comes to mailing your own stuff. Like if you're selling something, make sure you record you packaging it. Make sure you take pictures of the package itself. Make sure you record all of that, even down to you dropping it off, because you don't know what kind of funny business someone else will do. I think those are the proper measures someone like the average collector should do. Like if you're buying a Moonbreon from someone that's raw and you're trying to get it graded, or if you're doing something on that regard, I think those are the right kind of measures you should probably do. And if you're feeling iffy about that person, use a middleman. Use a friend that is known in the community, that is public. Like sometimes I do middlemaning for free. Like if someone says like, "Hey Shiv, like I need this. Can you like make sure that this is, real, or can you, intervene in this sort of transaction right here and kind of make sure that things are done correctly?" I have zero problems with doing that. So
I mean, Shiv, with what you're saying about if you have that iffy feeling, sometimes you
just don't even mess with it.
And exactly. It's
Yeah.
tough because sometimes you're like, oh, that deal is so good. I really want this
Yeah.
card. Sometimes you kind of just need to bury your pride and be like, it's not meant for me. There'll be something else.
Yeah.
And I go back to what you were saying earlier. Like, yeah, me and Jesse are dealing with items that are obviously in a specific group. The rules still apply for all
Mhm.
price. Scammers are going to scam you for $5. They're going to scam you for $100,000. Like, they don't care about the price point. So it definitely does apply to everybody with this kind of stuff. And you just got to do your due diligence. For me, when I was starting out, I purposely always met at a police station or a bank. Nothing can happen at those two places. It's always the safest if you're going to do that in person. Middleman, you got to do your research because a lot of people aren't like educated on who are good middlemen in the space. You know, like anyone can have a bunch of followers. People can pay for followers, and you would never know that none of us would even know who this person is. Someone could have 50,000 followers. That's a middleman, but all of us would be like, wait, we've never even heard of you or seen you in this hobby.
Pay the
So
the
it's definitely-
$15 a month for verification. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like the cool thing with you guys too, as content creators, is I know you guys engage with so many people, and that I think a good advice would be if you feel off about anything, message anyone who's a content creator that's in the space, because a lot of the times you'll get a response back saying like, don't mess with it, or here, ask this person, or this person. These are who I trust. And they won't screw you over, because otherwise you guys would blast them all over the internet anyway.
Yeah,
I
I would
think
also say though, the middleman
sorry.
of choice should be like a physical card shop, a reputable brick and mortar
Yeah.
shop.
That was the other thing I was going to say.
Yeah, because a shop will never, because the shop can't go anywhere, right? So if the shop works with either party, their reputation would be ruined, and they're not someone that can just hide in their basement or move somewhere else because they have a business to run. So a reputable shop as a middleman or a transaction location is also preferred. And a lot of people do transactions at CJ Shop, and we probably help middleman like 100 deals a year for our friends for free. I don't think we've ever charged for it. A lot of people do charge.
Got to pay attention to as well is when you do it at a store, make sure you ask the owner for permission to do a deal in their store, because sometimes they're like, no, I'm not going to let you do a deal when I don't know either of you. Or,
That's true.
hey, I'll come and I'll support your store and buy a bunch if you can just let us do this deal. I just want to feel safe. A lot of times, if you just tell the owner how you exactly feel and why you want to do it in their space, most of them won't care, as long as you're transparent about why you want to do it there.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to touch on that I think Casino did right with the flowers and turds buy was buying the card, not the grade. And so many people can forget that reslabbed cards are cropping up more and more. And the fact that this
100%.
guy at, high five figure price points is going, oh, how do I shoot the card? How do I shoot? Wait, do I turn the flat? Like the moment there's hesitation on an asset, like a deliverable that is that easy, and bro is giving you grief about it, either the card's not as described or bro doesn't have it. And I think the back and forth that you probably experienced with him was probably him being like, damn, I know he's got the money, but how do I get him to buy this card that's MP or damaged or whatever it was? So,
or maybe it's even sold to somebody else. Like, why is he asking for a deposit?
The other thing I forgot to say too is that he kept also trying to use leverage against me to buy it too. He'd be like, if you don't buy this Charmander, this auction house already said they would grade it for me and we just auction it and it'll get slabbed up anyway. And I'm like, my guy, you could have done this months ago. You've been posting about this card for 4 months and no one's bought it from you. And here I am. So like, again, it was just a lot of BS that I should have caught way too early. The funny part was he actually showed up at the Malaysia show and got autos. And I found out after the fact from his post, but I don't know his face. So, and funny enough, me and Jesse actually had a laugh today because he just randomly posted the Squirtle to his page an hour before this stream.
Bro, apparently his page is gone. Someone just said in the chat that his Instagram's deactivated.
Really? Well, I thought he just posted a bunch of
Check it out. See, maybe they found the wrong page. Or maybe they're talking about the Mystic guy.
Oh, probably the Mystic guy. No, the flower vendor is he's still on.
No, I looked. I mean, Cole Freestyle is still on Instagram, and then
they probably got blocked.
And that was the other thing too, is he immediately blocked me from his stories afterwards. So
The
I
Flower
can't
and Turds is
think
still
that
on
he's
Instagram as
selling.
well.
I can still see his page, but I can't see what he's selling. And I'm like, that's also another pet peeve for people. If you sell a card, just be transparent and show it. Like I'm selling a card right now for someone for, roughly around 15K. The buyer wants to see the card. I'm going to take it out of the sleeve. I'm going to have the light right over the card, and you are going to see every single part of that card front and back. And I'm learning more and more that most people just don't do that anymore. They just kind of, here you go. And I'm like, if you spend money, you got to know what you're buying, period.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time because I want to hear Alex's story, and we have some questions I want to talk about as well because I want to define like scams and bad business practices and how do you draw the fine line. So, yeah, before we do that, I want to hear about Alex, your experience, and we can have a discussion about it after.
Yeah, so last year we were contacted by a streaming service and they were like, hey, we want to do a $25,000 giveaway with Weiss Schwarz. What could we do? And, for me, I was like, the ultimate thing in Weiss Schwarz is the ephemeral existence by SP hunt. There are 2 SPs in a case of Rascal Doesn't Dream of Bunny Girl. Let's find a Rascal case. And we were well within the budget to be doing this. So right around that time, a guy named Edson Alvarez in the Weiss Global community group goes, yo, I have an open case of Rascal Doesn't Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. And, I want to sell the boxes. And I was like, wow, the clouds have opened up. I have a month and a half to produce a stream. Let's do this. So I hit him up and I'm like, yo, can you send me photos and videos of the case and the 16 boxes? And because immediately right away, just to contextualize, you can map Weiss Schwarz cases, right? And if you pull out the SPs early from a case, the case is just dead from that point on because they have guaranteed pull rates per case. So he shows me a case, sure enough, of Bunny Girl Senpai in 16 boxes in a video. And I go, and he goes, his reasoning was, yo, I was going to sell these off individually because the Weiss market isn't strong enough for someone to just straight up whale 16K on a case. And I was like, that kind of makes sense. Like Weiss is not where Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh is from a high-end standpoint. So I'm like, okay. So I got together with my co-producer of the stream and we sent over a lot of money for this case. That was, when you have 16 boxes of Rascal, it is wave 1. It's not the reprint. That's kind of hard to fake. And I was like, there's no way he had 16 dead boxes of wave 1 Rascal. It's fine. Fast forward, my buddy Rhymestyle and I did a very infamous stream in July of 2023 where we gave away a Rascal case hunting the SPs and we pulled 0 SPs from that case. And if you actually go back and watch the stream, if it's still live anywhere, the last hour and a half of that stream, I was literally just like, holy shit, we got scammed. Like we got absolutely destroyed. So we go to the guy after the fact and we're like, Edson, you said that, how did this happen? Right? Oh, bro, well, I guess it was an error case. It was an error case. But you know what? It was an error case. Let me refund you guys some of the money. And this is another hallmark of scammers is I'm never going to refund you everything, but let's go on a payment plan, buddy. I'm going to give you 10%. I'm going to give you 20%. We saw it with Mystic's case. And sure enough, he gave back a very small amount of the money and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. And then we found out he lied about where he worked. And it was just the classic, I was seizing on a moment where I thought I found a rare good. There was urgency. I didn't want him to sell them to someone else. Yeah, we got scammed. It was awesome. Edson Alvarez, great guy.
Wow, thank you.
Very well, actually.
Yeah, it was good times.
That's insane. So how do you prevent that from happening? I mean, did you have videos of opening the case? And...
Oh yeah, everything. We opened every single box on one video or another, and they were all live streams, and I never live stream. It was super funny. And yeah, so there would be at minimum one SEC and one SP or 2 SPs, and there were none of all the 16 boxes he claimed were from the same case. So yeah, just it was just brutal.
Probably out of the game with the CT scanning.
Yeah. Literally,
so
dude.
from my understanding, it's I'm not very well versed in that area. Only Pokemon pretty much for me. So it's kind of like the equivalent of, let's say you have like a guaranteed certain number of hits per case, and then when you open it, you put the rest of the boxes somewhere else. You open another case. So the boxes itself don't look like they're resealed, but they repackage the non-hit boxes into one case. So it's hard for you to even know from the boxes if they were resealed or not.
Correct. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
like back when I don't know if JP Pokemon still has case hits or if that was ever actually a thing, but it would be taking all the dead boxes after you pull the Miriam SAR and then putting them into one case. Like he had, and we ended up finding out actually via screenshots from other collectors in White Schwartz that he was selling off play sets of SPs from that set. So at
Wow.
the very same
That's a
time,
dead giveaway.
he was working with middlemen selling off an abnormal amount of the signed cards from that set. So yeah, it all came full circle at the end. But the moral of the story from my case is there was an aspect of too good to be true with the case already being open. And once you hit 4, 5, 6-figure price points, if there's even a seed of doubt, like even a 1% chance, like that tape being cut on that case should have been all the information I needed to walk away. But because, like Mystic said earlier in the stream, shit is moving. We're doing business. Life is happening. I have a son. I have a wife. Everything is going on at once. You're just kind of like, I don't have time to think about this. Let's move forward. Let's go. And those are always the times that you get bid for the most money, is when you're kind of just getting frivolous with things you already know. And I hated it because I've made anti-scam content on TikTok for like 4 years. And I was like, you make all these videos and you just got scammed. Like, that's such an L.
Yeah. No, that does make sense, because a lot of the times it's almost like wishful thinking, right? Like when a deal is not too good to be true, where it's like alarming, but just like a good deal enough. And like you said, there's a sense of urgency. You don't want somebody else to come across this deal and buy it. It's almost like wishful thinking. You're like, hey, like I hope this is legit. And we all fall victim to that. And I've done that many times with like a car, for example, or like a property. When you go through a property and it's like it's selling for below assessment value, and you're like, hey, this is a great deal. And then you go through inspections and there's like a bunch of things that are breaking down. And then you're like, hey, but maybe it's not going to cost me that much money because it's so cheap. I'm willing to take the risk. And oftentimes is that type of wishful thinking that you're praying, you're hoping this is legit, that kind of like makes us fall victim to these scams. And you're right. If you're opening a case and you even have a shadow of a doubt, stop opening and at least get the rest of the money back. But I mean, I feel like this is something that every single one of us falls victim to, and so hard to avoid when it comes to like when these products that have like guaranteed case hits and then loose boxes. It's the same thing as buying from like Japanese like Pokemon stuff. There's a lot of people that are saying there's like a guaranteed like God pack per case, or there's a guaranteed Umbreon per case, and then people will sell the rest of the cases once those are hit. I mean, that's not confirmed to be true, but that's why there's case premium. So I feel like that's such a hard thing. It's not like a black and white will use a middleman or sign a contract like me and Mystic's case. This is something that will happen again and again, and it's really hard to avoid.
Something that I appreciate from this conversation, just because I don't show off my high-end collectibles, but I actually have a pretty decent sized collection at this point. The idea of utilizing contracts for these exchanges, and also staying away from platforms like Wise, and maybe doing a Bank of America or whoever your main bank is, a financial institution. I love that you just even introduced me to that, because, I've done deals mid 5 figures and there was zero contract. So moving forward, I mean, even if there was like a PDF somewhere where someone like me or somebody else in the chat could be like, oh, this is a workable contract for an exchange like this that is legally binding, that could be cool to share with people.
Yeah. We can put out like a template that people can sign.
There is no contract and you do a wire. The bank, even if you have proof of fraud or anything, a lot of times they still won't reverse it because they can't.
Wow.
So you do, even when you have really good standing with your bank, A lot of times they can still be like, no, once it's sent, like that's why you click authorize with all the warnings.
Yeah.
So you do have to be careful with that regardless. That's why
Makes
the
it more
content-
complicated when it's international too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the good thing is I do sign a contract with every deal unless I've done like many deals with them in the past and it's a friend of mine. But I would say for anybody that you don't know, or even if you think that you do, but you've never done a transaction with, you should always start with a contract because you never know if this person is trustworthy or not before you do a transaction. I've seen many people that seem like great guys in person. And you're like, hey, I've connected with this guy, went out for drinks with him at Collecticon or something. And then he happens to be a scammer. So if this is the first time you're dealing with anybody, always sign a contract, whether it's like $1,000 or $500,000. I think it's all the same because at the end of the day, and I also ask for their ID usually to know that they are who they are because many of us have like Instagram names and I just happen to use my own name because people know I'm Jesse Payne, just like Alex, just like Shiv, just like Pokey Sun. But there's a lot of people that don't have their actual names on social media or they have a fake name, right? So you actually want to see an ID because I send them. I'm totally fine with sending my ID because I know that I'm legit. So if they're like, yeah, I don't want to show you my ID. I want to remain private. That's a red flag as well. The same thing with this Flowers and Turd guy. He actually refused to provide me with his beneficiary address for the wire transfer at first because I guess he said he's a private person. But with bank wires, you have to have a beneficiary address. So that was acquired from the bank. That's why he provided it to me.
Well, he
yeah.
didn't use somebody else either.
Yeah, he can't use somebody else's address because the wire wouldn't have gone through.
I meant like if he just used all different info because
Yeah.
a lot of people will do that too.
That's right, because that might be somebody else because I don't even know his face. So
Exactly.
even if you show me his passport, that might be somebody else's passport. That's a really great point.
Another thing to add, like for those of you guys who are in the chat, it never hurts to ask, right? So like if you feel like something is off or you're looking at something that doesn't quite doesn't quite feel right, then it doesn't hurt to ask other peers of yours that you actually trust within the community. And often at times whenever I'm dealing with people who are trying to sell me something, if they're being up at arms, when you're asking for high resolution pictures or if you're trying to ask them for videos or anything of the sort, don't even waste your time. Just move on to the next thing. Like, trust me, whatever you're trying to buy, it's probably going to pop up. It's not something that's going to get out of your hands for good. Like, it's always going to exist. Like, if you see trophy cards popping up on auctions every now and then hey, whatever you're thinking about buying, it's going to happen. It's going to pop up.
Casino, Jesse, how do you guys feel about paying half up front and then half after? Is that like a workable scenario with most people? Or is it just kind of like they're going to be like, nah, I'm not doing that?
Are you talking about as a seller or a buyer?
As the buyer.
If I know who they are, I don't mind doing it because it's showing intent. Because that's what that guy wanted me to do originally. Was like,
wow,
like
okay.
I don't like. I'm not sending you money when I don't know what you look like, who you are. Like, no, absolutely not. But like, if Jesse said, hey, I need cash up front or half cash for something I'm buying from Jesse, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll send it to you right now. I wouldn't have an issue with it. But to do something like that with someone you don't know, I would probably never do.
Yeah.
What I typically do whenever I do consignments is I'll ask the seller to send me the product, and once I receive the product, I go through all of I go through everything in terms of verification. And once everything is set, then I will tell the buyer to send over the money. Once I receive the money, and then I ship over that product over to the buyer, and that buyer has received everything as per usual, then the seller gets their money.
Yeah,
that's typically how I do things as far as consignment goes.
that's the correct way to do it.
Even when I receive the product itself, I will ask other people. I will ask like 5-10 different people. It's like, hey, is what I'm looking at good? Is everything that I'm doing, completely legitimate? Because again, I might be an expert, I might be in this hobby, but in that moment, it's like, nah, I'm gonna ask other people, and even if I have to fly out to somewhere and ask someone, to look at this in person, then I will do that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, another piece of advice I want to tell people too. Just do it. If it's a bigger thing, do a contract, even if the person is known. Because now that I'm thinking about it, like Shiv and Alex, like we've been at Collecticons for a while.
Yeah.
I can name so many streamers that we thought was extremely trustworthy, has a huge following, and then just winds up scamming a bunch of people and then are now out of the hobby.
Bro, it's like Squid Games out here.
It really is. Like from the original people that we started this thing at Collecticons, I was like, oh, everyone's falling off. Like everyone's scamming. So
dude, I could go back on pictures from like Tampa Collectors Con or like the first Collecticon, and I'm like, man, that person's no longer here. That person's no longer here. That person's no longer here.
Took 10K from random people. That person scammed everyone on Whatnot. That person scammed everyone.
It's funny.
This year is going to be the year of airing a lot of stuff out. Like I still know a lot of big streamers right now on Whatnot that I could bury in 2 seconds.
It's funny because I've had Card Kahuna on my podcast, and he's the guy who's notorious for selling the fake first edition case to Shine, which then went to Logan Paul, and that was a whole thing. And then what's funny is that when Collecticon first went national, my first panel had Blake Martinez and Cassius Marsh. So I had two of the two biggest scammers in the hobby who scam people out of millions just on my podcast. And it's just a crazy thing to think about.
The coincidence, right, Shiv?
Wait, did somebody
coincidence?
You said Cassius is a scammer too?
No. I don't think Cassius is a scammer. I don't think I've seen, I don't know. Okay. I haven't seen anything. I don't know. But Blake, 100%. Yes, he's confirmed scammer. Card Kahuna, 100% is confirmed scammer.
Yo, this is actually like, I'm super curious. So if Blake would have been brought to court on a class action of some type, right? Because he was never actually, I'd say he was always sending the product that was paid for, but what we know was the scam was the reordering of the product and the manipulation of how it was sold. I actually do wonder if that would legally qualify as a scam. If he had a great lawyer that was like, what are you talking about? He always sold the product. It always arrived. So how is
it's
it
still
a scam?
fraudulent?
It's like, I'm not defending what he did. What he did was an absolute travesty joke. But what I'm saying is like, it's so hard with surprise products, getting a lawyer to explain to a judge why Guess the Energy Game was a scam.
That'd be so hard to explain.
That'd be so funny to listen to, though.
Yeah.
Your Honor,
it'll be hilarious.
Energy
what blows my mind though about the whole like, the Card Kahuna whole thing is like we haven't heard anything.
Where's the case, bro?
Yeah, where is he at? Like what happened to him? Well, why isn't there any news about this on the internet?
Bro, go back to the Dumb Money box. Go back to the Dumb Money box with Leonhard on a live stream opening the first edition base box where it was 420? And that thing was like completely fake. I think this is why scammers
with the seller present too. That's the craziest part. This guy had the audacity to sell a fake box and be present at the live stream.
This is why I actually think that this talk is so important. It's why I'm here. Is we need an immune system to the scammers at that level because they think that they can do this without repercussions, and 90% of the time they can. Like really. They just can't because it's like, oh, it's cross state lines and the Florida PD doesn't want to look into it, or oh, the lawyer wants to charge you $1,200 an hour to write up a paper. Like there are so many barriers to actually taking action. And Jesse, I'm so relieved to hear that despite it being international, you got your money back because I was honestly, I was worrying about you, bro.
I know. I had a terrible New Year's Eve because I was thinking about, it's like, hey, I might have to deal with this for the long term, 3 to 6 months. I did believe eventually he'll have to pay me back because like I said, this is like a Ponzi scheme where you sell like one card to like maybe 5-6 people and then eventually pay them back one by one. I think that's what he was trying to do. But I thought I would have to get the money back because in Singapore, it is a felony to not wire someone back after the deal not being completed, but I think there's like a timeline to it. It's like 3 to 6 months or something. So maybe he's trying to take advantage of that. I don't know, but I had no trust in this guy to send me my money back once he receives it, because as you can see in the screenshot, when I asked him, like, how do I trust you? Leave the card. If he had any intention of sending me my money back, he wouldn't have went and took the card, right? It's okay if you go back on the deal. Leave the card at the middleman service until the money is sent back, because you don't want to sell the card anymore. Why? What's the hurry, right?
No, his DMs were insane, bro. That was his DMs were shocking, because that's just not crazy. How you talk to someone.
You have no choice. That is all. That's crazy. The audacity, right?
Dude, I was using the restroom and I had my headphones on when you said that. I'm like, yo, this is kind of crazy.
Went to the restroom. Wait.
You went to the
yeah. But
very strange indeed. Behavior from that guy.
Before because I got to go. But in regards to the sealed stuff, because that's been my main thing before a high-end product, is mainly just sealed boxes. That's my thing. That's what I love. And there's more fakes than ever. And I've noticed that even people that are reputable don't know a fake from a real vintage box. So I try to have some grace with people, but that's the one thing. Like, if you ever get a vintage box shipped to you, record it. Even from eBay. If I bought a box from eBay, I will get a camera and I will have it watch me opening it, because I can know pretty quickly if a box is fake. So at least that way you have extra proof. But there's a lot of reputable people. Like, I remember I was at the Edison Collecticon. And thank God for a buddy of mine who was with me. I went and bought 2 rocket boxes, a first ed and an unlim, from a very reputable store.
I remember this.
And I was about to pay with my credit card, and my buddy's like, hey, you should just look at the boxes anyway. And I'm like, oh, I trust them. He's like, but just for me, look at the boxes. And I was like, all right. So I take the box out of the case, not even half a second. Oh my God, this is fake. And grab the other one. I'm like, oh, these are both fake. And I looked at my friend, I'm like, thank you. And I looked at them, I'm like, hey, these are fakes. And they had like 4 other boxes. And I was like, can I see all of them? And it was like fake, real. And I was like, yeah, you got, and they were like so livid. And I'm like, in my head, I was like, I did feel that they were genuine and that they just really didn't know. Because a lot of people just think they know how to buy a first ed jungle box, a first ed fossil box. But there's so much that goes into it. With the seam, the logo, the material, how it feels, the shake, the peak test. Like, there's a lot to it. So if you're gonna buy vintage product online, definitely record it.
Also,
absolutely.
to add
anything when you take delivery with opening the shipment, you should always record it. Anything that's over like $1,000, I would say.
Yeah,
dude, anything, just anything that you buy. It's your hard-earned money. You should record anything.
Love. Sorry, I gotta pee.
Bye.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks,
I know
bro.
we've mentioned middlemen in this conversation, but in this hobby, this is something that I did not know until I started middlemaning, is that there are people that middleman for middleman who then middleman for that. It's a crazy
5,
thing.
6 intermediaries for big deals. Yes.
It's crazy because everyone wants, and the reason why this happens is because everyone wants a cut, right?
Yeah.
And so, you want to make sure that the middleman that you're dealing with is the only middleman. He's the person that's directly close to the actual buyer or seller, whatever it might be, and that's it. There's so many people that do that.
I actually gave that advice to a lot of my friends too. Yeah.
And then another thing to add is whenever someone is, this is for people who are just doing A to B based, transactions. Always ask if the thing that you're buying is on hand for them. Oftentimes you'll deal with people who don't necessarily have that item. They'll try and finagle their way of getting an item for an X amount, and they'll just make money off of you just for that sale. Like, ask if they have the item on hand, ask for videos, ask for timestamps, ask for everything. Ask questions.
Man,
this is your money.
Basics, but they're so helpful. Yeah.
This is your money. It is your responsibility to make sure that you don't trust anyone out there. Just make sure you're doing your own due diligence, making sure that what's in front of you is what you're gonna get.
Yeah. So that's great advice. So I actually have a story that's not Pokemon related. This is probably 6 years ago. I was working for a very big buyers conglomerate in Hong Kong, like one of the wealthiest families in the world. They're basically it's in the crypto world. They're buying 9 figures worth of Bitcoin at the time. And I was a buyer's mandate. They actually hired me to do it for like 6 months at the time. This is like maybe 6-7 years ago. And I was dealing with, well, this is like a 9-figure deal. So it was absolutely ridiculous how it's almost impossible to get to the source of the coins, because like Shiv said, there's like 6, 7, sometimes 8 intermediaries. And a lot of the times, because, well, I'm a direct buyer's mandate, I'm trying to get to the direct seller's mandate, you have to like pay people 5-6 figures to get to that person, because nobody wants to give it up. And in order for them to give up their like the level above them, they ask you for money. And the crazy thing is, because in that world, you have to provide proof of funds and proof of coins. And I've done the proof of funds multiple times. And sometimes I realize people do this to fish for your proof of funds so they can act on your behalf and get more coins on their side. So it's the same thing with Pokemon, obviously not on that scale, but there's so many middlemen involved for these high-end deals that you actually have to try and at least get to the level that represents the source. And the other side as well. I want to talk to a lot of my friends like yourself, Shiv, that are very reputable people in the community. When you middleman deals, you brought up a really good point. Do not middleman any deals unless you have the product in hand. Because number one, there might be more than one intermediary. There might be multiple people that's trying to broker this deal, and most likely you're going to be wasting your time. Number two is, if you don't have the product on hand, you're risking your own reputation for this guy's benefit, right? So if you don't have the product on hand and then you're talking to people, somebody agrees to buy it, they might first of all use your offer to shop for another offer from another intermediary. That's going to make you look bad, or it's already sold through somebody else and they have multiple partners, and that's going to make your reputation, well, that's going to damage your reputation. So do not middleman any deals unless you're direct to the seller and you have the product in hand. So that is the most important. I was actually telling Pete this. Pete was trying to middleman a huge like $1 million deal. And he was asking me, he's like, Jesse, well, like, there's this deal. Tell me your thoughts on it. I was like, if you don't have the product in hand, do not middleman this deal, because you don't know if this guy and this guy's partner even has this thing, right? So, yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up.
Just to kind of loop this all the way back to something we talked about earlier, where we want to make sure that middlemen have a physical property, because it's much easier to trust someone when they actually have a stake somewhere. They've got their plot of land and they have to be there on Monday, no matter rain or shine, right? This actually goes for pre-order scammers as well. There's a lot of backpack sellers, and there are so many people that are going to tell you in the coming months, yo, I got a case of Prismatic Evolutions. Yo, I'm a little above market, but I'm not like that high. It's a really good price. You should buy from me. I have seen, as a moderator and an admin in a collector's group, so much pre-order scams over the past 3.5 years, and it's always the same thing. I got a great price. It's on the case. Come get it while it's hot. And the person never ships. Yeah. And that's why I'd recommend, with Prismatic Evolutions dropping in any other set, in any other card game that's super hot, find a brick and mortar store that has references before you pre-order from anybody. Because look, unless some backpack sellers, they don't have the physical location, but they have great reputation online, they can be trusted. Make sure you vet them, but prioritize the actual brick and mortar stores you pre-order from, because they can't just pack up and run the same way.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's why Pokey-san and I talked about in our podcast, when we pre-order products, don't just find the cheapest price out there, because those guys are most likely going to either cancel your pre-order, use your money as an interest-free loan, or just scam you altogether.
Yep.
Find a reputable shop, brick and mortar store, or Pokey and Nee, he was in our chat earlier, someone that's very reputable in the community that doesn't have a history of canceling pre-orders.
Sure. Yeah.
That's really important. All right, before we go into like the defined scams, bad business practices, Lee, do you want to go through some of the comments? I think we were so like passionate about what we were talking about. We didn't really interact with the audience as much.
Yeah, so Gonzo just made a good point about loose packs going about. I think a while back, there was this incident where there was a fake vintage booster box of
First edition Neo Genesis, I think.
Neo
Yeah,
Genesis by Poketrav.
Poketrav. Yeah.
Okay,
It was
and then
EA Collectibles sold it. He bought it from Poketrav, and
yes.
Poketrav bought it from Loose Packs. Well, actually, there might be two more people in between, but yeah, that's kind of like what happened.
So it just kept handing off to different people, and over time, we just don't know who got the fake box, or actually if the box was, tampered with. So I think that's why Poketrap was a little reluctant to do the full refund for ENA Collectibles, because it passed down so many different hands. But eventually Loose Pack actually refunded.
Yeah.
ENA
So
Collectibles.
that was a very interesting situation because that was, I believe, right before Burbank. So when that whole thing happened, when EA called out Poketrav, I was actually with EA at his house doing a deal with him.
Oh, really?
So and I was talking to
happened?
Poketrav, so he was already pissed off. He's like, oh, this guy. So he thinks he got scammed by Poketrav, and Poketrav obviously, in my opinion, so this is my opinion, I don't think Poketrav knew about the fake box. This goes back to what Poke Casino said. There's a lot of people that are really reputable and big collectors in the community, and you just don't know how to tell real from fake boxes from real boxes. So it's hard for you to really pinpoint where it went wrong. But I think EA did a good job to show that the box was the same box as the box that you purchased. So it was really tough for Poketrav to really like refund the $32,000 a year after it was purchased from him. And I think Loose Packs, he made the really, like, I probably would have done it too. He made the decision to refund, which is a really great thing. But I think he should have like talked to Poketrav about it and then maybe like refund it up the stream instead of refunding EA directly, because that was what like Poketrav was saying, and it made him look really bad. I'm not saying I know for sure he's not the person that. Well, I'm pretty confident. I'm like 90% sure. But that whole situation could have been avoided if there was better communication. But it still goes back to what Poke Casino said. It's really, really hard for vintage boxes to be sold with like a guarantee of authenticity. And I feel like that's why like the pedigree or having a trace of ownership is so important when you buy vintage boxes, because that's pretty much the only way you're going to be able to tell if this is real or not. Like, I know EA is reputable, but EA's bought from people who's bought from other people. So I wouldn't really buy a first edition base box for $220,000 unless I have a trace of ownership. Like, so many boxes have been offered to me. Like
Yeah.
Shib, you've offered me a box. And again, I'm like, if I don't know who this box belonged to in 1999, I don't want to take my risk and buy it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what you have to do.
But now with the CT scanning technology, do you feel like that could kind of solve that problem, authenticating the box 100% that it is real versus fake?
That's honestly a really good point. See,
I think
it's
so.
not as black and white as people think it is. Like, oh, CT scans are all bad. Obviously, I've never used it before, so I don't know. But this does sound like a legit application that would be a benefit to the hobby if used in a certain way. But I still think CT scanners, like the people that offer these services, should have like a database of every product and every box ever scanned in their database and put like some sort of a watermark on the boxes that were scanned, so people can, so you're able to tell which boxes are scanned and which aren't, right? So I feel like they do have a database and make this as transparent as possible, so there's no bad apples in the hobby that use that to their advantage and scam other people. It could be used in that way, but without that being done, I think CT scanning is still a net negative to the hobby. So I would still advise against people using it, but if you absolutely have to and you're buying a $200,000-$300,000 box, it does seem like you have no other choice. What are your guys' thoughts?
Gonzo asked a good question. How difficult is it to trace ownership getting boxes that are almost 30 years old? It's not hard. For example, about a year and a half ago, I bought a Shadowless box for close to, right at the door is $60,000, right? And the person that sold me the box, very reputable. But again, I'm not trusting 100%.
Mhm.
Asked where they got the box from, and so they told me where they got the box from. I went to that person. That person was what's the card shop? What's the big card shop in near Kansas City?
Kansas
Anyways,
City
yeah,
Collectors?
Kansas City. Yeah,
Collector's Cash?
yeah, Collector's Cash. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They're the ones that used to own that Shadowless box. Well, I reached out to the owner because I'm good friends with him. He literally sent me pictures of which exactly booster box it was that came from that exact case with the exact same sort of issues with the box, everything. I'm like, whoa. So finding provenance should not be too hard. It shouldn't be too hard. Like like if so and so said, "Hey, I bought this box from Jeff," then okay, then who did Jeff buy this box from? Joe. Like it's not that hard. Like
Yeah.
these
I agree.
big transactions,
They don't change hands that often. It's not like a
they don't, yeah.
$500 card. Yeah, when you're talking
Yeah.
about $50,000, $200,000 booster boxes, it should
Yeah.
only have changed hands less than 5 times in its history with the
I
first
think
edition base box.
I think something that like isn't really a big issue. I mean, it's a big issue now, but we don't know the repercussions of it till later. Is card cleaning.
Oh yeah.
I think that I
Mm.
think personally
We're
speaking,
gonna
I think
talk about that in the next segment. Okay, let's answer this question. So Jeff said, "Hey Jesse, did you hear about Ghost Games mass pre-order cancellations on Prismatic this week? Held customers money for 2+ months. Claimed their supplier raised price last minute to $95 USD." So we've
Yeah.
spoken about this topic in our previous episode, and this really hits close to home for me because we do own a card shop, and our card shop is very successful. I actually did a $2.4 million year this year, one of the biggest, like, at least Pokemon sellers in Canada now. But most of our sales are done through like high-end collectibles, and we do have sealed product, but we really pride ourselves for not canceling a single pre-order in the history of our 5 years in business. And many times when distributors cut our allocation, CJ has to go out and buy product at market to fulfill these orders at a loss when we did have pre-orders. But for hot sets like Prismatic Evolutions, because we don't have a lot of product, we just don't do any pre-orders. Well, first of all, we're in the position where we don't need the money for liquidity. And second, like if we're not going to have enough product, we're just going to want to keep it at the shop. So with Ghost Games, it is a very unique situation because I know both of these people are really reputable sellers in the community, but they are an online shop like Poke&E. They are not a brick and mortar shop. So they do not have distribution, but their prices are very competitive throughout their history. Like selling, I believe they did sell their Surging Sparks at around $110, $115 USD. And they sell like hundreds, if not thousands of boxes. So they are very reputable. But the mistake that they made, I've talked to both of them. Well, I mean, I haven't talked, but I've seen both of them talk about it in the Facebook groups, and they talked about how they had a commitment from their US supplier, but they didn't have the contracts, they didn't have anything in place. It was kind of like a verbal agreement, and they placed the pre-orders based on like an understanding and verbal agreement, and then last minute their suppliers in the US raise their prices, which I do believe that because they don't have a history of doing that. So they're saying they will show receipts of their cost being $95 USD once they pick up the product. But as of this point, I believe it's not intentional. I believe these people are good people, but they should not have put out pre-orders for this product without a contract in place and without like a direct commitment on paper from their suppliers, and which we don't have to worry about because the distributors are not going to be able to raise their prices. They can cut our allocation by 95%, right? But they won't, at least for wave 1, they can't raise the prices 3x. So a lot of people are confused about distribution and suppliers. So these guys don't have distribution. That's why they're not getting the product at wholesale. They're usually getting prices at below wholesale from their suppliers in the US for previous sets that are not as hot. But I do believe a lot of people don't believe them because they're like, distribution doesn't raise prices. Well, these guys are getting it from their suppliers that have provided them product in bulk at below wholesale prices for previous sets. But for this set, I do believe they did raise the prices and they can't fulfill the orders at MSRP, but they also have to take responsibility for putting out pre-orders without a commitment on paper. They're just saying we trusted them for 3 years, and now boom, they betrayed our trust. Well, it's kind of on you. Don't put out the pre-orders then.
Yeah. A lot of pre-order cancellation right now that's going on. Canada, US, I mean, just everywhere. It's been like a mass chaos for Prismatic Evolution.
Yeah.
And
I'm not looking forward to the videos that are about to crop out of, Target, Walmart, Costco when this
Yeah.
set drops. I mean,
my
it's going to
gosh.
be
people are going to be fighting. They're going to be
yeah.
So God said Pokemon, he does have distribution now. Yeah, he does have it now. He's a really big seller. I'm talking about like most online stores don't, especially in Canada, because in Canada you have to have a brick and mortar shop to get distribution. So it's a little bit different from the US. And I have to say, like this Costco situation with the Blooming Waters, like I think it's absolutely ridiculous that people are selling it at that price. And this we can kind of like lead this into the next topic, which is define scams and bad business practices. CJ and I have decided to sell our entire allocation from distribution of Blooming Waters at MSRP to help combat this situation, because obviously we didn't get a lot. We only got like 30 boxes, I think, which is absolutely ridiculous. But like we're going to sell our entire allocation at MSRP because I feel like somebody has to do something for the community, and I hope other stores can at least follow suit, because you're not going to have a lot of this product anyway, right? I hate seeing people, literally I see like 50, 60, 70-year-olds tripping over themselves in Vancouver fighting for these boxes. And then like Costco opens at 9 o'clock. At 9:15, I see like 100 different Facebook Marketplace posts. Like they are grabbing the product, checking out, and taking pictures in their car, in the trunk, trying to sell it for 3x the MSRP.
Yeah, right then and there.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. And I can show you guys some messages from sellers. Like there's this seller that had the audacity to reach out to me and be like, hey, Jesse, I've talked to you before. Spoke to you around COVID. Anyhow, 20 boxes, 151 Blooming Waters, and $140 each. Can deliver to your store tomorrow. You want to pass on? You want this before I go to the next person? So look at this. That's absolutely ridiculous. So I just told them, hey, we already made the commitment to sell at MSRP. So kind of like go fuck yourself, right? Like
that's awesome.
It's just ridiculous. I understand like you lining up to get product to either sell later or keep it into your collection or trying to ripping it. That's okay. Like I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna line them and get product for myself too. I want to rip some 151. I want some packs, but it's limited for 10 per person, and you should not be tripping over each other and fighting people in the parking lot for these products, right? It's not that big of a deal, and most of the people that are doing this clearly doesn't have the liquidity that they have to call the shops. They have to sell it right away in their trunk, because they need the money right away. And these people are the worst people for the hobby. Like you can buy it, at least have the audacity, like don't have the audacity to sell it right away, but actually keep it for like a couple months and, wait for the dust to settle, or sell it after the product is already out of like circulation at big box stores or at shops, right? You can sell in 6 months. Why do you have to sell it now? And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why we're trying to like not encourage people, try and tell people to not buy it at current prices, because this is going to encourage people to keep doing that. And people actually get physically hurt. There was somebody that got stabbed in Vancouver over Pokemon products at Costco. Somebody got stabbed from like the neck down to their like butt, got slashed because somebody stole their product and the guy pulled out a knife and stabbed them. This is like a few months ago. And that's it just blows my mind. That's why we wanted to put product out at MSRP, even though it's only going to do a little bit to the market, probably not even anything, but it's a principle that I'm talking about. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that is the true definition of scalping, trying to sell it right after you immediately buy it at the parking lot.
Yeah.
That is some crazy stuff that's been going on. And I mean, Pokemon cards have been making people do some crazy things with the increase in demand of these type of popular products. 151 Prismatic Evolution is probably going to get even crazier once it releases in January, I think the 17th, right? And I just hope that people will actually understand, have an understanding that doing something like this is not okay. But do you guys have any other inputs or any advice for people who are going to be out retail shopping on release day where it might get pretty hectic?
And like, what is your definition on scalping? That's what I really want to talk about, because that word is being thrown around quite a bit, including a lot of people are talking about like shop scalping product. They sell at MSRP. I mean, sell at market price above MSRP. Like, what is your guys' definition on scalping?
Shiv, I'll let you
Alex?
go first.
Shiv?
I mean, I've had a lot of thoughts on this, and I mean, I've kind of put my opinions and thoughts on this a few years ago, and people really didn't like it, and I still stand by it. As far as like scalping goes, I think it's just simply put, like you're buying product at retail, off shelves, and you're trying to immediately flip it. That's pretty much what scalping is. As far as like my solution to it, I know people aren't gonna like it, because I'm so biased on stuff like this. Is like why one, don't overspend. Like it's not worth it. Two, if you're not able to buy that specific product at hand, there's plenty of Pokemon products and cards that are out there that is probably on your bucket list to buy. Like you can go to a local shop, a local card shop, go to a local business that you already go to and support, or go to a friend that you find online or in the internet, or go to an online business that you already support. Buy a card that you've been wanting that's extremely undervalued. Like what's funny is that like right now we're in 2025, and the advice that I'm about to say is basically the same advice that I gave during the last boom of Pokemon, and that is people are going crazy over modern cards when vintage cards are extremely undervalued right now. So like just save up. Wait till the dust settles. You can always buy this stuff later on. Like a Moonbreon has 13,000 in pop. There's
Oh,
Oh, bro, it's like 16,000 in a PSA 10.
Sorry, I closed my eyes and opened them up for a second. It's now 16,000. Like there's far more rare cards out there that you can literally cross off your bucket list and then worry about this other stuff later. Like it's always going to be available. It's there.
Yeah.
But people aren't going to like that because people are going to say, "Oh, well, Shiv, don't tell me how to collect." Or,
It's toxic positivity, Shiv.
dude, it's like dude, it's crazy that like I don't know, I have goosebumps right now just because I'm giving the same sort of advice that I gave. And I used to be very opinionated and be very vocal on social media, but I stopped because people didn't like it. And
Shiv would
you know,
say stuff that we were all saying, and everyone was okay when we said it, but Shiv would say it, and they'd be like, "Toxic positivity! You're bulldozing us collectors." Like, we would all say this stuff, and they'd be like, "Yeah, Alex, yeah, this guy, yeah, that girl," but then, like, Shiv would be like, "Hey, I agree," and they'd be like, "Boo!" Like, bro, it was so like, it's funny.
That's so funny.
To Shiv's point,
Shiv, what did you do? Who'd you hurt?
no one. I'm just like look, I'm like my dad. I'm brutally honest. And some people like brutally honest people because they're gonna shoot straight with you and they're not gonna lie to you. And I'm not gonna be the super duper nice person out there. I'm just gonna be real and honest. Like that's how I can be. Like we're all adults here. We're all spending money on cardboard. We're all spending money on a hobby that's already expensive as is. Like I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah.
no,
So-
it's really funny. Like to Shiv's point, him and I have been making TikToks about how bad scalping is for 5 years now. Like we've been doing this since 2020, saying the same thing. I actually found a video from November of 2020 where a guy is walking out of Costco and he's got every Ash Greninja box and he's walking out, and it's me reacting to the fact that I don't think it's good because you are removing the option from normal kid consumers who are the intended market. Like you're removing the magic that we all had as kids completely. And that to me is like beyond the fact that it's just kind of like greed machine. It's just doing something bigger to the entire hobby. Like there will be kids that will not experience prismatic evolutions as kids because of scalping. And thus, 20 years from now, when they're adults returning to the hobby, they won't have these precious memories, this nostalgia that builds the IP for them. Like they are missing that entire formational moment. So it's bad for the hobby down the road. It's bad for the hobby now. It's also cringe. So it's like there's so much, it layers in so many ways to be toxic.
Yeah.
Like
I
my
agree with
thing, my thing is like if you're one of those people who's thinking about bum rushing it to a Costco or any sort of retailer to buy out everything, like you can use that exact same sort of money, go to a convention, go to a card shop, buy a bunch of cards, literally just use that same exact budget that you have, buy a bunch of cards, buy it at margin that makes sense for you and for the shop, and literally flip that, and you'll make just as much, if not more, profit in the process. Like people, again, I'm literally giving the same advice and the same things I'm saying right now as what I said 5 years ago. And so,
yeah. So
I don't know.
I have a question for you guys though.
What help that the average collector has FOMO as well? It doesn't help. And when you try to tell people things that they don't like, they just don't want to hear it. They just want to hear things. I mean, I will say this: a lot of people that are in the hobby, they just want to hear things that they want to hear too.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to ask you guys, if a store is selling Prismatic Festival at, Terrestrial Festival. So Michael asks, what are your thoughts on stores selling Terrestrial Festival for 150 Canadian, and what is the difference when people selling 151 3x? Okay, so basically, if a store is selling a product at 3x MSRP, but that's the market price, would that be considered scalping or no? What are your guys' thoughts?
I don't want to go on to a 10-minute tirade, so I'm going to let Shiv go before me.
Well, first of all, he said 150 CAD, like Canadian dollars. Is that even real money?
That's like 25 bucks. No, I'll translate. That's about 112, like $110 US. Which is above market. Market is about like 90 US. So
yeah.
I'll be honest. I know that Alex pushed this over to me. I'll be honest. I'm so detached from this side of the hobby that I don't even know what MSRP is. I'm being straight up honest, because like I just this side of the hobby became so stressful and so toxic that I just like started just focusing more on just really collecting the one or two things that I really like.
Yeah, that you enjoy.
And so like that I really enjoy, that I can just stare at. So like I don't know. I'm not gonna claim to be an expert at this. There's other people that are in this hobby that are far more experienced at this. I'm not an expert at this, so I can't say anything on this.
Okay, so I want to hear your thoughts, Alex.
Okay, so I'm going to play both sides of this. On the consumer end, if you don't think the price is fair, then you have it within every right to be like, this is rent seeking. I'm out of here. You know, I'm not going to support this with my dollars. And if enough consumers come to that conclusion, that shop is going to feel the pressure to then lower that pricing, which is a great thing for everybody. And I think they're a little high on their price, on their evaluation. I think like when you start getting Terrestrial at like $80, even though that's very expensive, that would probably be closer to where my intuitions are on that. But let's get into the part where everyone's going to be mad at me: profit and loss. So we've been talking about inflation as a society for like 4 years, and we notice eggs are expensive, milk is expensive, gas is expensive, everything forever is expensive, right? Utilities have gone up. Everything has gotten more expensive, but the price of a Pokemon pack, the MSRP price, is supposed to be $4. The problem is that these brick and mortar stores that have tournaments, that have pricing, that have employees that are now not $10 an hour, they're $20 an hour if you're in California. There is market forces on those brick and mortar stores to follow the market trends, because they literally cannot survive selling Pokemon packs at the cost, because it is so expensive to rent, to insure, to supply all the products. We could talk about dollar loyalty with distributors, because the distributors aren't going to give you the cases you want unless you buy all these products that will not sell. So there are so many market forces happening to these small mom and pop shops right now. That was a weird move. There's so many market forces affecting small mom and pop shops right now where they literally won't be able to stay open much longer because brick and mortar big box stores are going to swallow them if they don't meet market at some point. And the problem is, if they do stick around at MSRP, what happens is what happens at Costco. The guys rush the doors, they buy it all at MSRP, they go on Whatnot, and then they sell the boxes at 85 or they sell it in the parking lot. So there's really no good solve for the brick and mortars. And don't get me wrong, brick and mortars can charge you way too much and it's cringe, but there's a lot of brick and mortars whose profit and loss has changed completely in the past 4 years because the world is so much more expensive. And they're just like, well, if I don't sell this at $80 a box, I literally am losing money today and I'm going bankrupt tomorrow. MSRP has to go up on the standard Pokemon pack because the shop model cannot support it anymore.
I agree. Yeah, you literally just said everything that I said in our last podcast, but in
I just copied everything you said. I wrote it down and I was like, I hope Jackie doesn't say I got something wrong.
Alex is that good.
Yeah, that was like but you said it way better than I did. Because I was a little bit emotional and people were kind of like, "Oh, Jesse, go fuck yourself," right? They're like, "Oh, emotional." I saw the comments, emotional shop owner just ranting about shit. I turned it off. You're right. Like you've said it in a way where it's like more objective and you're like kind of like a third party looking in. And I was just like an emotional wreck talking about people. But again, like this does not affect me because my wife and I do not rely on Pokemon as our primary source of income. And it's a passion project for us. And we donate most of our money to charity anyway from the shop. Those of you that know us know that. So you can't just be like, yeah, these guys are super greedy. It's not true. But for most of the shops that rely on selling Pokemon cards to pay their bills, Alex is absolutely right. If you sell it at MSRP when the market is 3x MSRP, you're not going to survive. And people don't understand, like you got to look at both sides of the market because, you know, I study economics in college as well. Like this is a two-sided market. You can't just talk about it from the buyer side, but you have to think about it from the seller side too, because game theory states that the economy is in its most optimal state when both sides win, right? You can't just think about, oh, I want the cheapest product. That's short-sighted thinking, because if you want every product at around wholesale, which is how much Sword and Shield and Scarlet Violet boxes were selling for in 22 and 23, if that market lasts for more than 5 years, no brick and mortar shops would exist. You have nowhere to go get your product, nowhere to go and play tournaments, nowhere to buy your singles. The hobby would die within 5 to 10 years. And people don't think about that. I've seen so many comments on YouTube that says any booster box over $100 is a scam. Do you know what wholesale is for a booster box? It's now
always
like
the people from the Midwest, bro. It's people that literally pay $350 a month for a mansion on a lake in like some random city in like Minnesota. They're always
basically
like,
where I live.
My game shop is 4,000 square feet and the rent is $1,000 a month. What are you talking about? $100
exactly
is plenty for a booster box. I'm like, dog, Southern California is not that. Like this is not. Like,
exactly.
not everywhere is Lake Minnetonka, my guy.
But
like, maybe it's great you can do that, but we can't.
Yeah.
What's funny is that the same thing that you just said, Alex, is literally what you've also said on TikTok 5 years ago. Like everything word for word. I'm like, man, this is just so weird.
In 1999, the average home price in Southern California, I believe, was like $200,000 or something, right?
Yes, sir.
It is now like $2 million.
My city,
you can buy
like
a decent house for 200K
for the most.
But in 1999,
ever.
Like, same with Vancouver. Vancouver is like that. The benchmark home price for Vancouver is 2.4 million now. But anyways, Vancouver, Southern California, 1999, it was like $200,000. Now it's like 10x. The booster box, Pokemon booster box in 1999, I believe MSRP was like $100, right?
Yep.
It is now like $150. Right, and you guys are complaining. You guys are saying anything over $100.
Oh, it's like 110. It's like 110 for like Surging Sparks, like MSRP.
No, it's Scarlet Violet is like 160 now, right? Lee?
Oh,
160.
we're talking about market value. I thought we were talking about MSRP.
No, MSRP. I'm talking about MSRP. So people are saying if a booster box is over $100, it's a scam. Like,
Oh,
are you
yeah.
even taking into consideration inflation? And like you said, the shop owners now have to deal with rent, have to deal with full-time employees, have to deal with paying the bills and providing a place for people to play
It's just more
cards. So
expensive. It's
it,
just
it
everything is more expensive now. Like apples are more expensive, milk is more expensive, labor is more expensive,
Right.
electricity is more expensive, insurance is more expensive. Like it is all inarguably more expensive, but the margin on the pack that pays your bill is not. So what do
Yeah.
you do other than just let Walmart's take over the world? And now we can only eat at Chili's and Red Lobster because no
Yeah.
restaurants can exist beyond the
Yeah.
chains. I mean, this is just what we're seeing. It
And
sucks.
not to mention, like prismatic evolutions, the allocations were brutal. I talked to our distributor, Pokey, and he talked about it. The average LGS has 3 cases of prismatic evolutions ETBs. Rudy said there's only like most of the shops has like 1 case. I don't know about that, but I heard
150 crazy.
yeah, I heard from distribution from our distributor that most people got less than 2 or 3 cases. And I know a relatively well-known store here in Vancouver that got 5 ETBs, right? So this is supposed to be the hottest set of the year, right? Let's say it's MSRP $60 and $50 and distribution is like 35. So you make $25 a box and then you sell 30 boxes. $750 in gross profit. That's not including rent, employees,
Yeah.
bills. How do you expect these shops to survive? And again, a shop charging market is different from somebody that's living in their mother's basement scalping Costco products. That's a distinction that people don't understand. So when they call shops scalpers for charging market, that kind of really gets to me because it's okay when the product is at wholesale and 40% below MSRP. Everyone's like, oh, that's great. This is fine. And the second when the market is over MSRP and the shop charges MSRP or above, then they're scalping. Like it doesn't work like that. It's greed on both sides, right? We have to find it's both scenarios are terrible for both sides.
And also, I
can't
think
go
the
both
real
ways.
problem starts upstream, but no one wants to be mad at mom and dad. Pokemon is the #1 media IP on Earth. Their profit is unimaginable. Their margins are incredible. The margins on paper cards are unfathomably delicious. And instead of printing more boxes, they understand, hey, all this hype and demand and the scarcity makes the cards go up, which makes new collectors collect and keeps our product relevant. So at the end of the day, we can be mad at all the little guys that are on the on the ladder because they're down the street from us. The reality is that Pokemon has created the conditions for this to happen. Oh, they don't have enough money to print more Surging Sparks. Oh, they don't have enough money to print more Prismatic. Are you kidding me? Of course they do.
Of course they do.
Pokemon, you know, after X and Y, because they ran into this situation back, you know, in the X and Y era, and that was not printing to demand. And then once Sun and Moon came out, they started printing to demand. And when the boom hit, they still weren't printing to demand. They were under printing, and we're essentially running into that again here. Pokemon is not printing to demand really ever because you know it's an automatic feedback loop with all of this. Like they see the craze that's happening. Like they see people beating the crap out of each other on at Costco. Like they see this. Like it's beneficial for their brand. At the end of the day, I mean, like
Desirability.
it's again, this is why I say, like, hey, you know, you're probably just better off just saving your money and waiting till the dust
You're right.
settles. You don't have to chase whatever sparkly, you know, Umbreon that's like.
There were other products that's still very affordable. That's very good. That Pokesun and I talk about in every episode, right?
Bro,
You don't have to
there's
get 30 Sparks, Prismatic Evolutions.
there's like
There's-
shining Pokemon cards from Neo Destiny that are worth the same price as like a PSA 10 Moonbreon. Like you're like,
no, less,
like-
less.
yeah, yes,
Like that
less.
game.
And so like it just again it blows my mind that people are going
Yeah.
like goo goo gaga over this stuff when you know, like, look, I get it. Modern is the barrier, like the first initial barrier of entry when it comes to the hobby. But like, bro, like so many people are so like I see this at conventions too. It's like, bro, do you guys not see all this other stuff that's over here? Like Okay, you want a Umbreon with 10,000 jewels? Well, why don't you go for Karen's Umbreon? Like,
Okay,
I don't
guys,
fucking understand.
I asked Pokestun this question. A Neil
I'm a boomer.
Discovery Unlimited Umbreon Hollow PSA 10. I know it's not first edition, but it's still technically the first artwork of that card in English. It is the Pop 100. It's a
Wow.
PSA 10 Neil Discovery Umbreon. How much do you think that's worth?
1,100.
Yes, $1,100 to $1,200.
Wow.
That is less than
Wow.
half. That's less than half
Alex.
of how much the PSA 10 Pop 1,600 million is worth right now. The Moonbrown is $2,500. Am I like going
That's funny.
crazy right here? Like
No, it's insane.
that is
It's truly
double
insane.
the Neil Discovery Umbreon. I would argue the Neil Discovery Umbreon is worth. I mean, it's more beautiful even with the artwork, and it's
But let's-
Pop 100. It's a piece
Is,
of
it,
history.
is that unlimited or
I'm not
first
like a
ed?
hater that missed out on this, dude. I have hundreds of these guys.
I'm the biggest hater of that card.
I am not a hater of this card. This is not worth what
I'm
it's
the
worth,
hater.
right? So for those of you, it's like, oh, this guy just salty. You never pulled a Moonbrown. Guys, I have more of these cards than all of you watching combined. Okay?
Right.
Please make it go down. It's not worth this much. Don't buy this at current prices.
But like, vintage aside, right? Like, my point is, like, some of us have been here in the hobby for maybe a year, 2 years, so on and so forth. There's sets that you probably glanced over that you didn't have your opportunity to acquire. I think if people just really, dial it in and just take a step back, take a deep breath, like this newest card, it's gonna be here. Just go back to a few sets that you want to. If you haven't got your chance to buy that chase card, maybe it's the chance now to buy it.
Absolutely.
Like there's plenty of sets, like whether it's WotC era, whether it's EX era, whether it's the Gold Star era, whether it's Black and White era, whether it's XY era. There's plenty of opportunities to buy stuff that you want. What I just don't want to hear is when vintage booms again and people are like, "Oh, well, I should have bought this." No, I don't want to freaking hear that. Buy that crap now.
You think there's
You
a
know,
vintage boom coming?
It's
No, I
absolutely.
don't know.
I
don't
know it is. Well, it's all relative, right? We're not saying vintage is going to be as popular as the Moonbreon now, but it is definitely undervalued. And I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to create a graph because I talked about this like years ago about how the Moonbreon is, my opinion, the modern day PSA 9 base set unlimited Charizard. Because that card has unlimited pop as well, right? Very iconic card, very popular, but that card is not hard to find. It's got like population of 14,000 as well. The Moonbrown PSA 10 is the same thing. Remember the highest price that PSA 9 base unlimited Charizard went to during the 2021 boom?
For
like
a 10, it
$8,000?
was the same price
No,
as
9.
a 9 was a $4,000 to $5,000 card. And that's
No,
because I traded that away at that
I think
at
it
that time.
went up to like around $4,000.
Wow.
And it
I think
fell
peak
back
was like
down.
$7,500
It fell
Yeah.
back down. It fell back down to like $800.
for a PSA
now it's
10.
back
It
up.
was
No,
for a
PSA, no,
10?
no,
I was
PSA
just
9. I'm talking about
Yeah.
no PSA 10 is the Pop 465. That's a rare card.
Yeah,
It's
no,
really
I'm
hard
just
to get.
saying that a PSA 10 price was the same price as a Gold Star Rayquaza at that time too.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So extremely
Pop 48.
overvalued at that time.
Anyways, so the PSA 9 base at Charizard is a very good indication of where the vintage market is at, right?
Mm.
So at the time, it went up to like $5,000. Like I think the highest sale is like $7,000, but that's like one data point. But the highest, like the peak market price is around like $4,000 or $5,000 for that card, and it fell all the way back down to $800, and now it's back up to like I think $1,300, $1,400, which I believe it will stay until the end of time. Well, I mean, it will grow slowly, but it's not gonna go like where it was before. So I feel like modern is similar to where vintage is at in 2020 and 21, because at the time everyone wanted the base set Charizard because of Logan Paul breaks, the first edition box breaks. So I think the Moonbreon PSA 10 will follow a similar trend because it's the modern day base set Charizard. No matter how much we don't like it, it is the most iconic card of the post or pre-COVID era. So kids will have nostalgia over these things. And unfortunately, the PSA 10 has 16,000 copies. It will be like 20,000 copies soon. So it's very available very desirable, very iconic. So I believe it'll go up to like maybe 3, 4, 5,000, just like the PSA 9 based on limited Charizard. And after the 30th anniversary, the market is cyclical. It'll go through a down period, just like 22 and 23. It'll fall back down to around $1,000 and slowly start the ascend again at around that price.
Is that, like, I know we're comparing it to to unlimited Charizard and how big that population is, but like we have to remember that's 25 years. Like, this is just 4 years after the set was released. Like, what you 5x that? What's the population? What's the population after 20 years, 21 years?
Yeah, the crazy thing is the gem rate for this card is at 77%.
Yes.
And people keep cracking their 9s and sending it in. And that's why I support Tag, because I feel like all these manual grading companies are bullshit. If you crack your decent 9 and just submit it 5 times, it will become a 10. And that's what everyone is doing.
Cracking and regrading is legitimately ruining the hobby for me, bro.
It's the dumbest thing, yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, people don't really understand this because they just want the shiniest and newest thing. But there are so many ways to enjoy this hobby without tripping over yourselves and punching grandmas in the face in the parking lot. It's just ridiculous. But anyways, back to our topic. I don't think scalping is a scam. I think it's a bad business practice. And there's many people that do it that are not like terrible people, but they do need to understand that this is not something that we should encourage. And at the very least, I don't think you should sell it right away. And the other thing is, if it's limit 10 per person, don't get like your grandmothers and your uncles and aunt to clear out the entire section, because like Alex said, you have to leave some for other people. It's okay if you go to Costco once a day and get your 10 boxes. I think that's fine. But if you just go and get everybody to clear out an entire section, that is just not okay. So I think it's a bad business practice, but it's not a scam, but it is ruining the hobby because so many people are doing it. What are your guys' thoughts? You guys agree on that? We can move on to the next one.
Yeah, no, and just to be clear, because we talked about profit and loss in stores, I do not own a card shop and I don't sell cards. A lot of people hear that tirade and they're like, "Oh, bro, well, you own a shop or you sell cards." I don't. Cards are just a financial hole for me.
Yeah. So he's unbiased. You can't call him an emotional card shop owner.
Yeah, I just love small brick and mortar businesses, and I want more of them.
Yeah. Okay, so this is another very interesting, important topic, and people don't really know about this, is distributors holding back product and selling it for market to card shops. So my opinion has slightly shifted on this because I had a long conversation with our distributor and he kind of like gave me a sob story and I sort of believe him. And that's like most of the products that at least we get in Canada, like if it's a hot product, we get like a wave 1 of products and then the reprint happens. They sell it to us, but they sell it to us at like market price. So Prismatic will be getting it at like $140, even if there's like a wave 2. So I'm asking him, like, how does this make sense? Because they do hold back some product and then they sell the second wave of products at market way above wholesale or MSRP. And they tell us that it's Pokemon selling them bundles of stuff. If you want Prismatic ETBs, you need to buy a ton of like deck boxes and collection boxes that don't sell. So they have no choice but to limit the shops and kind of like force some of that cost upon them because they know the other product are just going to sit forever. So they're basically telling me they're in the same position as us. It's Pokemon's fault. So, I mean, I thought it was like a really bad business practice. I still think it is, but maybe it's not. The distributors are not the root of the problem. It is more Pokemon, like Shiv and Alex was mentioning.
No, and look, I think that I'm seeing, because I work in an ad agency, right? And I see distribution models failing in multiple industries, not just shiny cardboard, nostalgia products. So distributors too, they are getting killed right now. It's true. I just think at some point, though, some of the practices that dollar loyalty exists, but they won't tell you about it. I feel like at that point, they need to institutionalize what that is, because it is like it's a favoritism system that you're not supposed to talk about. And shops get handcuffed by it all the time, right? They're not supposed to tell the customer, hey, kid, I got to charge you $175 for this box because my distro charged me market for it. You know, they're not supposed to say that, but they should be able to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to go past the next two because we kind of like talked about the card shop canceling pre-orders aspect of it. Again, I don't think any card shop should be putting out pre-orders until you know what your number is. And if you do sell a pre-order, it is your commitment to your customer to fulfill that pre-order. I don't care if you have to go and buy product and sell it at a loss, but it is your responsibility as a business to fulfill the pre-orders, no matter if you're taking a loss or you're not taking a profit, because your customer trusted your shop and your name and gave you their money for months at a time. And there's opportunity. You're saying, oh, I refunded them the money, but no, there's opportunity cost where that capital could have made them more money elsewhere, or they didn't have to pay the credit card interest for the $200 or $500 you spent at your shop. So absolutely, I don't think it is excusable for any card shop to be mass canceling pre-orders because something along the way you screwed up.
It's a free loan, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the next two is kind of similar, agreeing to terms on a deal and shopping or deal around for a higher price, selling a card multiple times. So that's happened quite a bit, and it's actually happened to me, obviously, most recently. Do you guys think that's a scam?
What, selling the card multiple times?
I think selling card multiple times is for sure a scam. But let's say somebody agrees to a deal. Oh, like you offer someone $5,000, they agree to it, or actually they offered you $5,000, you agree to it, and then they shop it around, tell other people, hey, Alex offered me $5,000 for this card.
Oh, private
You
auctions,
needed to do it.
100%. Yeah, that's shady as fuck.
It's shady. And I've learned it the hard way because CJ and I are like one of the big names in Western Canada at the very least. So almost everybody come to us and ask for an offer on their collection, and we pay really high. Like for Gold Stars, I pay like 90%, right? And they ask for an offer, and then I hear from other people, hey, this person told me you offered him this much. Is it true? And I'm like, I just stopped making offers at that point. I'm like, my offer is only valid for an hour, or my offer is only valid for the 30 minutes you're here. And if you don't come back to me and accept it, it's off the table, because I realized what people are doing. And I don't think it's a scam per se, but it is definitely a bad business practice. And it shows me what type of person that person is. So if I know somebody does that one time, I will not deal with them ever again.
It's like,
So
I'm
they're
not
fishing
Carfax,
around
bro.
for the highest price.
I'm not
basically.
Carfax, my guy.
Exactly. Go on TCG Player.
Bro thought I was Carfax. Crazy.
But card trimming and fixing, I feel like there is some room for discussion here, because I think trimming a card that's like factory and grading it is definitely a scam and it shouldn't be accepted. But all of these like square cut error cards that you get, or the cards that are graded from sheets, they're technically all cut from sheets, right? If it's disclosed that it was cut from an uncut sheet, I wouldn't say that's a scam, even though I don't collect these cards. But what are your thoughts?
As long as the labeling is transparent, non-factory cut, I think if it's on the label, which I think some grading companies do that, then as a buyer, if you're buying that and knowing that it was non-factory cut, then that's on you. But as long as the transparency is there, I do not necessarily think it's a scam. But yeah, what do you think, Shiv?
I agree. I think it's, as long as it's on the label, then I think it's fine, because you know what you're buying. It's when you buy something you don't know all the details about it, that's when red flags arise, right? So like putting on some gunk on a card and not knowing what it can do to the card 5-10 years from now, and you're buying it from some dude, you know, trying to clean up, scratches out, like basically removing scratches off a hollow, that should not be allowed.
Mhm.
And I think grading companies need to be more combative about it. I mean, dude, I see it on social media all the time, and I'm like,
It's bad,
hey,
man.
PSA, hey, like I have friends who work at PSA, I have friends who work at CDC, I have friends who work at Beckett. Hey, literally, like I'm literally sending IG accounts to you, like cut them out completely.
They don't care.
So,
But if you
yeah.
trim a card like a PSA 10 Charizard that was talked about by Rattle a while back, that PSA 10 that was clearly trim at the top, but without disclosing it, I think that is definitely shady to sell it at a
Well,
full
it's a crime. I mean, like that's
Yeah.
why, like if you look at
Card
baseball,
altering in general, yeah, it's just that is like as scammy as it gets.
it's a crime. I mean, it's why when you look at sports cards where trimming has taken place, it's why the FBI has gotten involved. It's there. Like you can see this, you can Google this. So like I don't know about you guys, but like I'm not trying to deal with the FBI, so I'm just gonna leave my cards as so and not have to deal with like putting random gunk on there. Now, like I think the only thing that is acceptable is like if you get like a cotton swab and use distilled water and just removing stuff off of your.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna say.
But I think everything else is like, yeah, you can't do it.
Okay, so I think I think of it like this: if you put any foreign material on it, it is not okay. It's fixing and it's a scam. If you trim a card to make the centering better, which we've seen on some PSA 10 first edition Charizards, unfortunately, I don't know how those cards pass and sell for like $170,000. That's not okay. But if you're like removing debris off of the card, which a lot of cards needs like actually like cleaning with like just some moisture and cotton to remove some debris from the card, in my opinion, that's okay. And for example, if like there's like a lifted corner and then you put it in a moisturizer and then you press it down and to kind of like push the lifted corner down, I feel like that is okay because again, there's no foreign like substances other than moisture. There's moisture in the atmosphere. I think that's okay. So it's not like you can't do anything to like make your card in better condition. I just don't think you should put any foreign materials or like alter it in any way with like a pen or paint or trim it. And I've seen people like remove backs in China, like they can remove a back of like a trophy card and then put in like a brand new back and somehow make it look seamless. So that is like some next level stuff that people do. Those are definitely not okay, but I do think there are some things that you can do before you grade them that is accepted.
I remember when Gary King Pokemon talked about like cards that are slightly curved, and what he would do is wedge them between two heavy textbooks. And then over time it flattens out. And I think
that's normal.
Yeah, that is totally normal. Just like you said, Jesse, like some things
but
are
what do
okay
you
to do
guys
like that.
think about like putting it like in a moisturizer, like a cigar box, and then pressing it down? Like, is that okay to you guys?
I mean, me personally, I'm gonna be honest with you. For me, it's not okay. But like, if it's just water and that's it, then hey, go ahead. But
Yeah, it's just water.
For me, as far as like foreign objects go, like foreign substances, I don't vibe with that. I don't really like the idea of someone turning like a PSA 6 into a PSA 9, just randomly magically just because they put in some weird gunk on there. Like I don't vibe with that.
My question is, can computer grading detect foreign substance? Like in tag grading, would they be able to detect the gunk? Like how would they know? Like what technology is used behind that to detect such alterations?
So
with foreign
it's really interesting because CGC, when they actually launched their grading company, they had a very compelling segment about how they were actually using technology that I covered on TikTok that would scan the elemental composition of cards. And that was how they were verifying that old error cards were indeed factory created. And so, there's a lot of claims there that, their proprietary process scopes in elemental composition. But ultimately, we haven't gotten a press release in the last 4.5 years that was like, hey, this scan revealed one of the Charizards we received was indeed altered because we discovered this chemical resting on top of the card's surface, right? And that is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you guys and to the chat. There's a lot of people that are cleaning cards and they're using gunk on cards. I'll tell you that right now. Like a lot of these people who are cracking and reslabbing cards and doing this, I promise you there's tons and tons of people that are cleaning their cards. People will go out of their way to get an advantage on something that is out of, initially out of their hands, and they'll just do things to fix it so that way they can make more money in the process. Like I see it on Instagram. There's this guy that does it. I'm not going to name him by name because I don't want him to get more popular in the process, but he's literally putting on tons of freaking gunk on there, and he's getting thousands of views, hundreds of thousands of views in the process. And people are asking so many different questions about how he's doing it, and he'll showcase exactly what he's doing. It's funny. I mean, like first it was Kurt's Card Care, and then now there's this other guy who's in the Pokemon hobby that does this. It's kind of awful.
Rocket Collects or something like that.
No, it's this Pokemon Master Central or whatever you call it. I don't freaking know. He talks with like a weird lisp or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be honest with you guys. Like, if you're gonna buy graded cards, you should probably like. I know we talked about provenance as far as boxes go. You probably should ask for the provenance on your graded slabs that you're buying too.
I mean, well, what's happening, Shiv, and I don't know if you've heard about this or had discussions about it, is older cert numbers are actually becoming more desirable than they were. Because for a while it was, oh man, the old cert Pokemon cards was back when PSA didn't have any standards. So they wanted, the 6 million, the 5 million, the 7 million. But then past 8 million, people were like, well, people are using junk on the cards now. So that PSA 10 was probably a PSA 7. So now the old certs for like the nicer items are becoming more fashionable again with a lot of whales.
I just typically like the 4 million certs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good sweet spot. I mean, that's the sweetest spot I'll probably say. Is
That's a
solid.
really good point.
Again, buy the card, not the grade. Usually, on average, the newer certs are cleaner, but like you said, there is a risk of the restoration and the cleaning aspect of it. So, at this point in time, you should probably just use your own eyes and try and find the best card possible for the price. But yeah, it's definitely becoming a problem, and a lot of the regraders are cleaning cards, and we know a lot of them in the hobby. I wouldn't say they're all standard.
I know a lot of them.
Yeah,
I know a lot of them. There's groups of them. Like there's literally groups of them that fix cards, and they all claim to have a guy who cleans cards. And I mean, like, okay, well, why can't you just clean? Like, if it's just water and a cotton swab and a microfiber cloth, why can't you just clean it yourself? Like, why do you have to have a guy for? So I just personally think that there's a lot of people out there. You're not going to be able to tell just by using your eyes if you're looking at a normal, graded card. I would just be I would be cautious. That's all.
So Kevin
So
said,
what would you even watch out for?
Nothing. I would again, like I said, like that's why I like cards that were graded pre-COVID.
So Kevin said, I have had customers have more customers getting returned ungraded in the past 6 months. So it's definitely getting caught more commonly by PSA. That's really good to hear. Kevin
great.
is a big PSA dealer here in Canada. So he's had experience submitting a lot of cards. So hearing that is great to know, because in the past, a lot of these grading companies, including PSA, BGS, CGC, have had card cleaners visit their locations, their offices, and they didn't really do anything. So it's good to hear that they're actually cracking down on this.
Yeah, I would just like to know how. Like, what's their process?
Yeah, like to the trimming thing, something that was very curious to me, because at the end of the day, there's very few actual collectors in the space. Like, I am actually finding myself, we talked about this earlier, it's like Squid Games. Everybody we came into the scene with is like gone. And very few people are still here actually collecting. And there's nothing wrong with flipping.
Yeah, I'm still here.
If you want to flip, that's fine. But like, ultimately, I am very rare and relate to very few people in the space because I buy to hold and I buy because I love this shit. I'm really a degenerate weeb that loves shiny cardboard. And so I get a lot of people that come to me that clean cards that I know they cleaned. And they think, oh, he's a content creator. He's an easy mark. He doesn't know anything. So I actually encounter a lot of these people super often because they think I'm dumb. Like they think like, bro's just a whale. He's just going to give me $20,000 for this card because he doesn't know any better. And so what's great is they all put themselves on my radar for me. And I just get to go, oh, interesting. So
You got
guys
to put
used
them
to
on a
like-
list.
You used
let
to
us
like
know.
the centering subgrade for the crack and regrade purposes. You guys used to look for it's a 10 and everything, but the centering. Okay, I'll get that one and I'll coin flip for Black Label. Now I started going, oh, it's so curious. Now they like the 0.5 off in edges. Why do they like the 0.5 off in wedges so much now? Could it be because they're cutting the edges?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
maybe. Yeah, man. No, it's funny. Like they put themselves on blast in my DMs every day, and they think I don't know what they're doing, and it's low key insane to watch, and it's
Yeah.
getting worse.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a really good discussion on that end. We're gonna have to wrap it up soon. I thank you guys so much for coming and joining the discussion. So one person actually asked me, did they talk about the money that was owed and eventually donated to charity? So this particular incident happened months ago, and this is with someone that I used to be kind of close with, and I mentored. He's a younger guy. I mentored him
I know
throughout
this guy.
the last 6 months or so, and given him a lot of advice on his career, and I thought I was pretty close with, and we actually resolved that matter, and he did pay me back the money, and I donated, like I mentioned in my story, to the charity Eat, Learn, Play, and I posted the receipts for that donation. It's for 7,200 Canadian, $5,000 USD, so that's already done. But because this particular individual already paid me back, I'm not going to talk about his name and what happened. I believe everybody deserves a second chance, and that situation was resolved, unlike the other $39,000 that I talked about. So just to recap what happened today, Mystic, myself, Alex, we've all talked about our experiences with scammers in the last couple of years, talked about the different situations, and you guys can rewind and listen to all three of us talking about our experiences and the people that we called out. We were out here trying to let you guys know who to trust and who not to trust, and also call out the exact scammers that scammed us. So make sure you go and look at the three guys. So the first person was, I believe, what's the clown? What's the guy's name?
It's like Noah Freestyle _
Cole
No,
freestyle.
Cole
Freestyle.
underscore freestyle. Do not deal with that guy. Second person I mentioned is Flowers and Turds on Instagram, a high-end trophy collector. Do not send this guy any money. I don't care if
Crazy.
he's done business with other people in the past. He is bad news. Don't deal with this guy ever again. And the third person is what's his name, Alex?
It was Edson Alvarez, but I think he's completely departed the card game at this point after our scuffle.
Yeah, most of these guys will eventually depart the card game. But before they do it, they'll continue to scam more people, because that's what an exit scam is. They've had reputations before, but now before they exit the hobby, they're trying to scam as many people as possible. There's a lot of examples of that. So don't be less alarmed just because someone has a reputation or someone has a track record. Still do your best to protect yourself by using a middleman, signing contracts. And now that we know that the sellers can actually go behind your back and get the product from the middleman, you should actually sign a contract with the middleman as well. That's what I'm going to start to do, because it is your responsibility to keep my property in your possession until the deal is completed. So I'm going to sign a contract with the middleman, because I'm actually paying for their services, and their scope of services should include keeping the property safe until the obligations are completed from both sides. So yeah, I think that's pretty much most of the things that we wanted to cover. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Just be
Yeah.
safe out there, guys.
Yeah, I mean, the idea behind this episode is to bring everyone together to discuss, a common issue that we've all experienced. we're glad to be able to, accomplish that today with the help of everybody here, Mystic, Shiv, and Alex, and Jesse. So thank you all so
Poke
much.
Casino, Pete.
Casino, yes, Pete. So thank you all so much for your contribution and your time. It's all very much appreciated. With that, Alex and Ship, do you guys have any final closing thoughts?
My computer's at 2%, so I might die at any second. So you guys go ahead, but just letting you know.
I would just say for everybody that's watching this that's never going to buy a card that's over 5 figures, just make sure when you pre-order any products, especially when they're going to be hype like a Prismatic Evolutions, go with a brick and mortar store that is local and or one that has so many glowing reviews that the odds of you being scammed are less than 1%. Because I love your terminology of exit scam, because it really is that that is a great way to frame it, because those people have reputations, but they still bounce. A brick and mortar kind of eliminates like a lot of that risk because there's employees, there's people there. Yes. Anyway, Alex Ketchup on all profiles. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And all of you guys, well, thank you guys for being here. This is a really important topic for all of us. And we wanted to use our pain and our experiences to help you guys. And for Alex, Shiv, Pete, Mystic, you guys are like pillars of our hobby. I really, really enjoy our time together, and hopefully we can continue to do this. And for those of you that are watching that are actually scamming, we will keep an eye on you and we'll keep you accountable. So anybody that scams anybody, you guys got to watch out, because we will expose your ass. And for anybody that gets scammed, reach out to us. And I know a lot of people don't have a platform and don't have a voice, but we do. So we will hold these people accountable for you guys. And for the scammers, get the fuck out of our hobby and leave the community alone.
Couldn't agree more.
All right.
All right. Strong closing. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and have a great rest of the night, everybody. Take care.
Later,
Until
chat.
next time.
Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye-bye. All right.